Think for a moment about where you feel the most pressure in your own life. Is it the deadline looming at work? The difficult conversation you're avoiding? The constant, low-grade hum of anxiety about the future? We often believe our toughest battles are the ones everyone can see, the external obstacles and public struggles. But the real war is almost always fought in the silence of our own minds. It's the internal chatter of doubt, the surge of anger we suppress, the weight of a disappointment we carry alone. These are the unseen challenges that truly define our days, and it is here, in this quiet, internal space, that a particular kind of strength is needed most. This isn't about loud declarations or forceful reactions. It's about the profound power of quiet resilience. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, who faced immense pressures both on the battlefield and in the palace, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. That is the core of our exploration today. The invisible strength that wins the toughest battles, the resilience that doesn't need to announce itself to be effective. This video is a journey into the heart of Stoic wisdom, a practical guide to building that very strength. We won't just be discussing abstract philosophy. We will be unpacking a series of powerful, actionable principles that you can start applying to your own everyday challenges. We'll explore the concept of the inner citadel, that unshakable core within you that remains calm when everything outside is in chaos. We'll examine the crucial practice of distinguishing between what is within your control and what is not, a mental shift that can instantly liberate vast amounts of your energy. We'll delve into the transformative idea of Amor Fati, the Stoic art of not just accepting but loving your fate, turning every obstacle into an opportunity for growth. These are not just ideas, they are tools for forging a quieter, steadier, and far more resilient version of yourself. So, as we begin, I want to invite you to bring a specific challenge to mind. Where in your life do you feel your resilience is being tested right now? Is it in your patience with your family, your composure under professional pressure, or your ability to handle a personal setback? Hold that challenge in your thoughts as we move forward. This isn't a passive viewing experience, it's an active workshop for your mind. Together, we will walk through the key Stoic principles that empower this invisible strength, providing you with a mental toolkit designed not for a life without storms, but for navigating any storm with an unshakable sense of calm and purpose. Let's discover how the quietest strength can, in fact, win the most formidable battles. The Stoics believed our greatest fortress is built not of stone, but within our own judgment. This is the profound concept of the inner citadel, a term that beautifully captures the idea of an unshakable core within each of us. Think of it as a sacred, internal space where your true self resides, a place governed by reason, virtue, and your capacity for choice. No external event, no matter how chaotic, disruptive, or painful, can breach its walls without your permission. This isn't about building a cold, emotionless shell. It's about cultivating a sanctuary of calm clarity from which you can navigate the world rather than being tossed around by it. This inner citadel is the very foundation of that invisible strength. We're exploring the quiet resilience that allows you to remain steady when everything around you feels like it's falling apart. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the Roman Empire during times of war and plague, constantly returned to this idea in his private writings, his meditations. He wasn't just theorizing, he was reinforcing his own mental defenses. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." This is a powerful insight into how we build this fortress. It's a daily practice of choosing the thoughts we let in and the judgments we form. He also reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This is the ultimate sovereignty of the inner citadel. The outside world will do what it does, plans will collapse, people will say things they shouldn't, traffic will snarl. But within your citadel, you hold the sole authority. You decide what an event means. You choose your response. That power can never be taken from you. It can only be surrendered. Let's bring this ancient idea into a modern context. Imagine you're facing an incredibly stressful work deadline. Your inbox is overflowing. Your manager is asking for updates every hour, and a key team member has just called in sick. The external chaos is real. The pressure is tangible. Someone without a fortified inner citadel might react with panic, spiraling into anxiety, snapping at colleagues, or becoming paralyzed by the overwhelm. Their entire emotional state is dictated by the circumstances, but you, practicing this Stoic principle, can recognize the storm outside while retreating to the calm within. You acknowledge the difficulty without letting it define your inner state. You focus solely on what is within your control, your next action, your communication, your effort. You guard the gates of your mind, refusing to let the chaos of panic and frustration enter. You might still feel the pressure, but it doesn't control you. You respond from a place of reasoned action, not reactive emotion. So, where in your own life can you begin to practice strengthening this inner citadel this week? It starts with a simple but powerful act of awareness. Identify one specific area where you often feel your peace is easily disturbed. Perhaps it's during your daily commute when another driver cuts you off and you feel that flash of anger. Maybe it's a particular relationship where a comment can easily throw you off balance. Or it could be the anxiety that creeps in when you check your bank account or your social media feed. Choose just one of these areas. This week, whenever that trigger occurs, pause for just a moment. Take a mental step back and consciously remind yourself, this is an external event. I choose what happens inside my citadel. In that small space, that deliberate pause, you are laying another brick in the wall of your unshakable core. You are not trying to stop the world from happening. You are building the inner strength to meet it on your own terms. How much of your daily mental energy is spent wrestling with things you cannot change? Think about that for a moment. The weather, the opinions of others, the past, the global economy, whether your flight gets delayed, these are forces entirely beyond your command. Yet, so often, we find ourselves mentally and emotionally exhausted by pouring our precious inner resources into a battle we can never win. This is where the Stoics offer us one of their most liberating and practical tools, the dichotomy of control. It is a simple but profound mental sorting mechanism, a way to instantly identify and stop the leaks in your psychological energy reserves. By clearly distinguishing between what is within our control and what is not, we tap into a deep well of quiet power, freeing ourselves from the exhaustion of fighting phantoms and allowing us to focus our efforts where they can actually make a difference. The core of this idea is captured perfectly by the Stoic teacher Epictetus in his handbook, the Enchiridion. He begins with this foundational statement: some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, our reputation, our office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. This is the ultimate filter for your experiences. Your own judgments, your values, your intentions, your actions, these are your domain. Everything else, from the body you were born with to the way people talk about you, belongs to the external world. The goal is not to become indifferent to externals, but to stop basing your happiness and peace of mind on them. When you tie your inner tranquility to something you cannot control, you hand over the keys to your emotional state to the whims of fate. The dichotomy of control is the act of taking those keys back. Let's apply this to a scenario everyone can relate to, a traffic jam. You're running late for an important meeting, and suddenly you're stuck in an unmoving sea of cars. The immediate, automatic reaction for most of us is frustration, anxiety, even anger. We grit our teeth, curse the other drivers, and feel our blood pressure rise. But let's apply the Epictetus filter. Is the traffic within your control? Absolutely not. You cannot will the cars to vanish. Is the fact that you are late for the meeting within your control? In this precise moment, also know that outcome is now determined by the traffic. So what is within your control? Your response, your breathing, your decision to use this time productively or restfully. You can choose to call ahead and calmly inform your colleagues you've been delayed. You can choose to listen to an audiobook or a piece of music you enjoy. You can simply use the time to sit in silence and observe your thoughts without being ruled by them. The traffic jam hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has been completely transformed. The emotional drain of fighting reality is replaced by the quiet power of adapting to it. This principle extends far beyond traffic. Consider cancelled plans. You've been looking forward to a weekend trip for months, and at the last minute, a family emergency or a work crisis forces you to cancel. The disappointment is real, and it's okay to feel it. But the dichotomy of control asks, is the cancellation within your power? If the reason is a genuine emergency, then no, it is not. So, where can you focus your energy? You can control how you handle the logistics, rescheduling flights, canceling accommodations. You can control how you support the person in need if that's the case. You can control your decision to reframe the situation. Perhaps this unexpected free time is an opportunity for rest or a different kind of adventure closer to home. By redirecting your effort from lamenting the lost trip to managing your response, you conserve immense emotional energy. You move from being a victim of circumstance to being the author of your reaction. To make this practice personal, I want you to try a quick mental exercise right now. Think back over the last 24 hours. What were 3 things that caused you worry, stress, or annoyance? It could be anything: a critical comment from a coworker, anxiety about a future event, irritation over a household chore. Now, take a piece of paper or just open a note on your phone and create 2 columns. Label one within my control and the other not within my control. Place each of your 3 worries into its appropriate column, that critical comment. The coworker's opinion and words belong in the not within my control column. Your reaction, your self-assessment, and how you choose to engage with them going forward belong squarely in the within my control column. Anxiety about a future job interview. The outcome of the interview is not in your control, but your preparation, your research, and the effort you put into your application absolutely are. This simple act of categorization is more than an intellectual game. It is a fundamental retraining of your attention. It shifts your focus from the uncontrollable outcomes that cause anxiety to the controllable actions that build confidence and competence. Doing this regularly begins to rewire your default mental settings, turning the dichotomy of control from a philosophical concept into a source of daily, quiet power. Nietzsche popularized it, but the Stoics were the original architects of loving one's fate. This is the profound principle of Amor Fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. It is the ultimate stance of resilience, moving far beyond mere acceptance or stoic endurance. It is the active, deliberate embrace of everything that life brings, the good, the bad, the confusing, and the painful, not as a series of random misfortunes, but as the essential raw material for building your character. Think of it as a fundamental shift from seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance to seeing yourself as the co-author of your life story. where every single event, especially the difficult ones, becomes a crucial part of the narrative. This isn't about pretending that hardship feels good. It's about recognizing that what feels like an obstacle is, in fact, the very path to becoming stronger, wiser, and more complete. By eliminating the internal resistance we have to what is, we stop wasting energy fighting reality and start using every experience as fuel for our growth. The Roman philosopher Seneca, who faced exile, chronic illness, and ultimately a death sentence, wrote extensively about this transformative approach to difficulty. In one of his letters, he advises, "A good man is not made by good fortune, he is tested by it." This gets to the very heart of Amor Fati. It's not that the Stoic loves pain for its own sake, but that they love the person they become by meeting pain with courage and reason. Seneca continues with a powerful metaphor, suggesting that we should welcome hardship as a sparring partner, not an enemy. He writes, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests strong men." When you adopt the mindset of Amor Fati, you begin to see every challenge as this kind of test, a rigorous, necessary training session for your soul. You start to look at a setback and think, this is the fire that will temper my gold. This is the resistance that will build my strength. It reframes the entire experience from something that is happening to you to something that is happening for you. To make this concrete, let's consider a deeply personal and modern example, an unexpected job loss. Imagine you've been with a company for years. You're dedicated, you're a reliable team player, and then, one Tuesday afternoon, you're called into a meeting and told your position has been eliminated. The initial shock, the fear, the blow to your identity and financial security, these feelings are completely valid and very real. The conventional, automatic response is to see this as a pure catastrophe, a terrible event that has derailed your life. You might spiral into anger, self-pity, or despair, fighting against the reality of the situation. But now, apply the lens of Amor Fati. This doesn't mean you have to be happy about losing your job. It means you choose to love the potential that this event unlocks. You embrace it as the necessary catalyst for a change you may have been too comfortable to initiate yourself. Perhaps this is the universe's forceful nudge to finally pursue that business idea you've been dreaming about for a decade. Maybe it's the opportunity to retrain for a field you're truly passionate about, rather than just comfortable in. It could be the brutal but effective lesson in humility and resilience that prepares you for an even greater role in the future. The person who gets that new, better job 6 months from now is not the same person who was let go. They are stronger, more adaptable, and more clear-eyed about what they want. Amor Fati is loving the process of becoming that new, more capable person, and recognizing that the painful event was the essential first step. This principle applies to smaller, daily frustrations with just as much power. Your car breaks down on the way to an important appointment, Amor Fati. Instead of erupting in frustration, you choose to love the forced pause, the unexpected quiet moment on the side of the road, the chance to practice patience and problem solving. You have a disagreement with a loved one, Amor Fati. You welcome the conflict not as a relationship failure, but as the necessary friction that leads to deeper understanding and a stronger bond if you navigate it with virtue. Even a common cold can be met with this mindset: a forced rest your body and mind likely needed, an opportunity to slow down and read a book, to listen, to just be. The event itself is neutral. Amor Fati is the powerful choice to paint it with the colors of opportunity and growth. Now, I want you to bring this principle into your own life with a simple but powerful exercise. Cast your mind back over the last week or two and identify one specific difficulty you faced. It doesn't have to be a major life crisis. It could be a project that failed, a plan that fell through, a criticism you received, or even just a day where everything seemed to go wrong. Hold that event in your mind. Now, I challenge you to reframe it using the lens of Amor Fati. Ask yourself these questions. How can this event serve me? What strength did it force me to cultivate? Patience, courage, creativity? What door might it be closing so that a better one can open? What did it teach me about myself or about others that I can carry forward? By consciously performing this mental reframing, you are not denying the difficulty. You are alchemizing it. You are taking the base metal of a bad experience and transforming it into the gold of wisdom and resilience. This is the active practice of loving your fate, and it is one of the most potent ways to build the invisible strength that not only endures life's toughest battles but is forged by them. What if instead of fearing the worst, you prepared for it calmly? This is the essence of the Stoic practice known as Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. At first glance, this might sound like a recipe for anxiety, a way to dwell on everything that could possibly go wrong, but in reality, it is the exact opposite. It is a powerful psychological exercise designed to disarm fear by confronting it head-on in the safety of your own mind. This is not about pessimistic worrying, which is an uncontrolled and emotional spiral into negativity. This is a deliberate, rational, and controlled rehearsal of potential challenges. By vividly imagining the setbacks, losses, and difficulties that could occur, you are not inviting them to happen. You are vaccinating your mind against the paralyzing shock of surprise. When you have already walked through a scenario in your imagination and seen yourself handling it with composure, the actual event, should it occur, loses its terrifying power. You meet it not as a catastrophe, but as a situation you have already trained for. The Stoic philosopher Seneca was a strong proponent of this mental training. In his letters, he advises his friend Lucilius to regularly practice this form of anticipation. He writes, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." This is the core of the practice's power. Fear and anxiety are often born from the unknown, from the gap between our expectations of how things should be and the unsettling possibility of how they might be. Premeditatio Malorum closes that gap. By anticipating adversity, you are not being negative, you are being realistic. You are acknowledging that life is inherently unpredictable and that challenges are not anomalies but part of the natural order. Seneca suggests that we should say to ourselves, "Fortune gives nothing which she can be sure of getting back." By mentally letting go of our attachments to external goods, our wealth, our reputation, our health, even our loved ones, we prepare our minds for the reality that nothing is permanent. This doesn't make us cold or unloving. It makes us resilient and profoundly grateful for what we have in the present moment, precisely because we understand its fragility. Let's bring this ancient technique into a very common modern scenario, preparing for a difficult conversation. Perhaps you need to ask for a raise, confront a friend about a hurtful comment, or set a firm boundary with a family member. The days or hours leading up to this conversation are often filled with a low hum of dread. Your mind might spin through worst-case scenarios. What if my boss says no and thinks I'm ungrateful? Or what if my friend gets angry and ends the relationship? What if my family member dismisses me entirely? In a state of worry, these thoughts are vague, emotional phantoms that sap your energy. Now apply Premeditatio Malorum. Sit down in a quiet space and consciously, methodically walk through these possibilities. Don't just fear them, plan for them. If your boss says no, what is your calm, professional response? Perhaps it is, "I understand. Could you help me understand what I would need to accomplish in the next 6 months to be considered for this?" If your friend gets angry, how will you maintain your composure? You might decide in advance to say, "I value our friendship, which is why I'm being honest about how this made me feel." I'm open to hearing your perspective as well. By visualizing not just the negative outcome, but also your virtuous and reasoned response, you transform the unknown into a series of manageable steps. You walk into that conversation not with fear, but with a quiet confidence because you have already navigated the storm in your mind and know you can handle it. This practice extends far beyond conversations. Consider a crucial job interview. Instead of just hoping for the best, a practitioner of Premeditatio Malorum would spend time imagining it going poorly. What if you are asked a question you can't answer? What if the interviewer seems disinterested or critical? Mentally rehearsing this allows you to prepare for it. You can plan to respond to a difficult question by saying, "That's an excellent question I haven't considered before. Could I take a moment to think about it?" Or, "I don't have direct experience in that area, but here's how I would approach learning it." By doing this, you remove the sting of surprise and humiliation. The potential failure becomes just one possible outcome for which you have a plan, rather than a terrifying monster. You can apply this to travel by imagining a flight cancellation and planning your steps knowing the airline's rebooking policy, having important phone numbers saved, packing a change of clothes in your carry-on. You can apply it to your finances by imagining an unexpected expense and considering which non-essential costs you could temporarily pause. In every case, the practice is the same. You are not manifesting negativity. You are building a robust mental and practical contingency plan. You are developing the invisible strength of preparedness, which allows you to remain calm and effective when others are descending into panic. Now, I invite you to make this principle your own. Look ahead to the next week and identify one event that is causing you a sense of anxiety or dread. It could be a presentation at work, a medical appointment, a social gathering, or a difficult task you've been putting off. Sometime today or tomorrow, set aside 10 minutes of quiet, uninterrupted time. Close your eyes and practice Premeditatio Malorum for this specific event. Walk through the scenario in your mind not as a passive victim, but as the calm, rational protagonist of your own story. Visualize the specific things that could go wrong. Then, crucially, visualize yourself responding with dignity, reason, and resilience. See yourself taking a deep breath, accessing your inner citadel, and acting according to your principles, not your fears. This mental rehearsal is a form of training every bit as real as physical exercise. You are building neural pathways of calm response, so that if and when life presents you with that challenge, your mind already knows the path. You will have replaced the energy-draining fear of the unknown with the quiet, empowering strength of readiness. The Stoics had a mental exercise to shrink our problems down to size by zooming out. This is the practice known as the view from above, a powerful form of meditation that involves mentally pulling the camera back from the immediacy of your own life to see it within the vast, sweeping context of the entire cosmos. When you're stuck in a traffic jam, fuming over a critical email, or heartbroken over a personal rejection, your entire world can feel consumed by that single, pressing issue. It looms large, blocking out everything else and triggering a cascade of stress hormones. The view from above is the antidote to this myopia. It's a conscious decision to shift your vantage point, to see your life not from the claustrophobic confines of your own skull, but from the silent, star-dusted expanse of space. From there, your city becomes a tiny cluster of lights, your country a shape on a globe, and the earth itself a pale blue dot floating in an unimaginable void. Against this backdrop, the argument you had this morning, the project deadline, the dent in your car, they don't vanish, but they are radically recontextualized. Their perceived magnitude shrinks, and in that newfound space, a profound sense of humility and calm can emerge. Marcus Aurelius was a master of this perspective. and he returned to it again and again in his meditations to ground himself amidst the immense pressures of leading an empire. He would write passages intended to recalibrate his own mind, such as, "Think of the universal substance, of which you have a very small portion, and of universal time, of which a short and indivisible interval has been assigned to you, and of that which is fixed by destiny, and how small a part of it you are." He wasn't trying to make his life seem meaningless. On the contrary, he was trying to find its true meaning by understanding its proper place in the grand scheme. Another passage urges him to look at everything that exists and observe that it is already in dissolution and in change, and as it were putrefaction or dispersion, or that everything is so constituted by nature as to die. This might sound dark, but its purpose is liberating. By contemplating the constant flux of the universe, how mountains erode, civilizations rise and fall, and every living thing returns to the earth, the temporary nature of our own troubles comes into sharp focus. The embarrassment you feel today will be forgotten dust in a century. The financial worry that keeps you up at night is a transient ripple in the endless river of time. This realization doesn't trivialize your experience. It liberates you from taking it with such crushing, ultimate seriousness. It fosters a calm acceptance that this too, whether good or bad, is part of the immense, beautiful, and indifferent flow of nature. Let's translate this cosmic exercise into a practical tool you can use the next time you feel overwhelmed. Imagine you're in the middle of a heated conflict with a colleague. The tension is thick, your heart is racing, and you feel a burning sense of injustice. In this moment, the conflict feels like the most important thing in the world. Now try to activate the view from above. First, take a deep breath and close your eyes if you can. Now, in your mind's eye, pull back. See the two of you not as antagonists, but as two small figures in a room. Pull back further and see your entire office building from the outside. See the people in other offices, each with their own worries, their own joys, their own silent battles. Pull back further and see your city from above, a vast network of streets and lives where your building is just one among thousands. Keep going. See your country, then the continent, then the whole earth, a beautiful marble spinning in the blackness of space. From this vantage point, your argument is a tiny, momentary event in a city on a planet in a solar system in one of billions of galaxies. Does this mean your feelings are invalid? No, but it dramatically reduces the story you're telling yourself about it. The sense of catastrophic importance begins to dissolve. You can return to the conversation with a calmer mind, recognizing that this is a small scene in a very long play, and you have the power to choose how you act in it. This practice is incredibly versatile. You can use it for anxiety about a future event, like a major presentation. Zoom out and see yourself in the conference room, then the building, then the city. Realize that in the grand tapestry of human endeavor, your presentation is one small thread. This isn't to discourage you, but to free you from the paralysis of perfectionism. You can apply it to a personal loss or heartbreak. In the depths of grief, it can feel like your entire world has ended. The view from above gently reminds you that you are part of a cycle of life and death that has been turning for billions of years. Your love and your loss are part of that universal, sacred process. This perspective doesn't erase the pain, but it can hold it in a larger container, preventing it from consuming your entire identity. It's a way of acknowledging your pain while also acknowledging that life, in its vastness, continues, and so will you. So, the next time you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, cornered, or consumed by a problem, I encourage you to give this ancient Stoic technique a try. It doesn't require any special equipment or a lot of time. The moment you feel that familiar tightness in your chest or the spiral of anxious thoughts beginning, just pause. Take 3 slow, deep breaths, then begin the mental journey upward. Start with your immediate surroundings and slowly, deliberately zoom out. See your street, your town, your country. Imagine the curve of the earth and the deep black of space. Spend just 30 seconds there, observing your life from that silent, expansive vantage point. Then gently bring your awareness back to the present moment. Notice if the problem feels exactly the same. Often, you'll find that its edges have softened. The fear has lost some of its bite. You haven't solved the issue, but you've solved your relationship to it. You've gifted yourself the clarity that comes from seeing your struggle not as the center of the universe, but as a small, manageable part of its magnificent and endless whole. What if you sought out small hardships to become immune to larger ones? This is the radical, counterintuitive logic behind the Stoic principle of voluntary discomfort. It's the idea of intentionally inviting small, manageable doses of difficulty into your life as a form of training for the soul. Think of it like a psychological vaccine. By exposing yourself to minor strains of hardship in a controlled environment, you build up the antibodies of resilience needed to fight off the more serious infections of life, those involuntary hardships that fate will inevitably send your way. This isn't about masochism or punishing yourself. It's a pragmatic and empowering practice designed to recalibrate your relationship with comfort and ease. We live in a world that often prioritizes convenience above all else, shielding us from even the slightest inconvenience. But the Stoics understood that this constant pursuit of comfort creates a fragile spirit, one that is easily shattered when real adversity strikes. By voluntarily stepping into discomfort, you are not seeking pain, you are seeking strength. You are proving to yourself in small, daily acts that you can endure far more than you think, and in doing so, you ensure that when life's inevitable storms hit, they feel like a breeze you've already learned to navigate, rather than a hurricane that threatens to destroy you. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a man of immense wealth who constantly warned against the softness it could bring, wrote powerfully on this subject. He advised, set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition that I feared? This exercise, which he called practicing poverty, was a way to confront our deepest fears about loss and scarcity head-on. By voluntarily experiencing a simpler life, even for a short time, we demystify poverty and strip it of its terrifying power. We learn that happiness and our core self are not dependent on external comforts. Similarly, the Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus, who believed philosophy was a practical art for living, taught that enduring hardship was essential for building virtue. He argued that comfort and ease are the enemies of resilience, saying, "How can a person become good if he doesn't enjoy hardship? For hardship is the very material that virtue is made from." For Musonius Rufus, voluntarily embracing cold, hunger, or physical exertion wasn't a test of endurance for its own sake. It was the raw material from which a strong, virtuous, and unshakable character is forged. It's the process of tempering your soul, much like a blacksmith tempers steel, making it harder, sharper, and more resilient through controlled exposure to difficulty. So, what does this look like in the context of a modern, everyday life? The practices can be surprisingly simple, yet profoundly transformative. One of the most accessible is the practice of taking a cold shower. That first instinct when you step into the shower is to turn the knob to a comfortable, warm temperature. The practice of voluntary discomfort asks you to pause, and for the final 30 or 60 seconds, turn the dial all the way to cold. The initial shock is a perfect microcosm of an unexpected life challenge. Your body screams in protest, your mind scrambles for a reason to escape. But if you stay, If you breathe through it and simply observe the sensation without being ruled by the urge to flee, you are practicing a monumental act of discipline. You are teaching your mind that discomfort is a sensation, not an emergency. You are proving that you can choose your response, even when every fiber of your being is urging you to choose comfort. This small daily victory builds a reservoir of willpower that you can draw from when you face a stressful meeting, a difficult conversation, or a personal disappointment. Another powerful practice is intentional fasting, or simply skipping a meal. In a world of constant snacking and food delivery available at our fingertips, we rarely experience true hunger. But choosing to skip lunch once a week or to push back your breakfast by a few hours serves as a powerful reminder. It reminds you that you are not a slave to your appetites. The grumble in your stomach becomes a teacher, showing you that you can function and even think clearly while experiencing a physical want. This practice builds the mental muscle of delaying gratification, which is fundamental to achieving any long-term goal, from saving money to mastering a skill. Beyond these, you can practice voluntary discomfort by taking the stairs instead of the elevator, by walking in the rain without complaint, by sleeping on a firmer mattress for a night, or by turning off the entertainment and sitting in silence for a period of time. The specific act matters less than the conscious intention behind it. Each one is a rep in the gym for your mind, strengthening your capacity for endurance and your immunity to the minor irritations and major upheavals that are an inescapable part of being human. I want to invite you to make this principle a tangible part of your life this week. Don't feel you need to overhaul your entire routine or take on a monumental challenge. The power is in the consistency of small, deliberate acts. Look at the coming 7 days and choose one single form of voluntary discomfort to incorporate. It could be the cold shower at the end of your morning routine. It could be skipping your usual afternoon snack. It could be leaving your phone behind during a walk or taking on a physical chore you normally avoid. Whatever you choose, do it with intention. As you feel the discomfort arise, notice the urge to quit. Then connect back to the Stoic wisdom. This small hardship is your training ground. This is you actively forging a more resilient version of yourself. With each second you endure, you are sending a powerful message to your deepest self. I am not fragile. I can handle this, and if I can handle this small, chosen difficulty, then I am far more prepared for the larger, unchosen ones that life may bring. This is the quiet, cumulative power of building resilience through practice, one small, voluntary act of discomfort at a time. The Stoics kept a skull on their desk not to be dark but to be vividly alive. This is the profound and often misunderstood practice of Memento Mori, the Latin for remember you must die. Far from being a morbid obsession with the end, this was a powerful psychological tool designed to ignite a more passionate, purposeful, and appreciative engagement with life itself. It is the ultimate clarifier. When you hold the awareness of your own finite time as a conscious thought, it acts like a filter, instantly separating the essential from the trivial. The petty argument, the fear of what others think, the endless scrolling through social media, the procrastination on a cherished goal, these things begin to lose their grip on you when viewed through the lens of a limited and precious lifespan. Memento Mori is not a call to live in fear of the end, but an urgent invitation to stop wasting the middle, to stop postponing your life for a future that is not guaranteed. It fuels a quiet but powerful urgency, compelling you to act on what truly matters now, not someday. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire yet never forgot his own mortality, consistently used this reflection to ground himself in what was important. In his meditations, he writes, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This is the core of the practice. It's a stark, immediate call to alignment. He isn't suggesting we live in a state of panic, but in a state of profound presence and integrity. Another of his reflections cuts even deeper. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life, now take what's left and live it properly. This might sound severe, but its purpose is liberating. By mentally fast-forwarding to the end and looking back, you are granted a clarity that is often clouded by the distractions of daily life. What would the older you, looking back, advise you to focus on today? Would they tell you to spend another hour worrying about a minor criticism, or would they urge you to call an old friend, to start writing that book, to finally have that difficult but honest conversation? This perspective shrinks our invented dramas and amplifies what gives life its true meaning: connection, contribution, and the courage to be fully ourselves. Let's translate this ancient practice into a simple, modern morning ritual. Instead of reaching for your phone the moment you wake up, grant yourself just 60 seconds of quiet reflection. Before the day's demands crash in, bring the thought of Memento Mori to mind. You don't need to visualize grim details, simply hold the gentle awareness. This day is a gift. My time is limited, I will not get today back. From that place of sober gratitude, ask yourself a powerful question. If this were my last day or one of my last days, what would I want to make sure I did? How would I want to show up? This isn't about drafting a dramatic bucket list for a single day. It's about infusing your ordinary Tuesday with a sense of purpose. It might mean that you decide to be fully present with your children during breakfast, truly listening instead of mentally rehearsing your work schedule. It might mean you finally send that email to initiate a project you've been dreaming about for years. It could simply mean you choose to speak with more kindness and patience to everyone you meet, because you understand that every interaction is finite. This daily rehearsal of your mortality doesn't cast a shadow over your day. It washes the colors of your life in brighter, more vibrant hues, making the ordinary feel extraordinary. Now, I want you to take this principle and make it personal in a way that can create immediate change. I want you to press pause for a moment on the video and truly sit with this question. What is one thing you would start doing, or one thing you would stop doing, if you carried the conscious awareness that your time is limited? Don't just think about it abstractly, be specific. Would you stop holding a grudge against a family member and make the first move to reconcile? Would you start that fitness journey you've been putting off, not for vanity, but for the vitality to enjoy your life more fully? Would you quit a job that drains your soul and begin the search for work that aligns with your values? Or would you simply stop saying, "I'm busy," as a badge of honor, and instead create space for quiet, for play, for doing nothing at all? This reflection is the catalyst. Memento Mori is the whisper in your ear that the perfect time will never arrive. The conditions will never be ideal. The only time you ever have to live a life that feels true and meaningful is the sliver of time called now. By remembering that the clock is ticking, you find the courage to start. Events themselves are neutral. It is our judgment that colors them. This is the heart of the Stoic discipline of Assent, a powerful practice of seeing things as they are, stripped of the dramatic and often painful labels we hastily attach to them. Think of your mind as a courtroom, and every event that happens is like a piece of evidence being presented. The discipline of Assent is the practice of being a fair, impartial judge rather than an emotional, reactive prosecutor. You learn to pause before you automatically label the evidence as good or bad. You simply observe the facts of the case. It's raining. That is a neutral fact. Your boss sent you a brief, terse email. That is a neutral fact. Your flight is delayed. Another neutral fact: the emotional turbulence, the disappointment, the anxiety, the frustration doesn't come from the rain, the email, or the delay itself. It erupts from the prosecutor's closing argument you instantly deliver in your mind. This rain is terrible, it's ruined my entire day. That email means my boss is angry with me, my job is at risk, this delay is a catastrophe, everything is going wrong. The discipline of assent asks you to fire that overzealous prosecutor and learn to sit in the judge's seat, examining the raw evidence before making a ruling. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, born into slavery and well acquainted with life's harshest realities, framed this with unforgettable clarity. He said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." This single sentence is a key that unlocks a more peaceful mind. He provides a powerful example in his discourses, pointing out that death is nothing terrible, or else it would have appeared terrible to Socrates. The terror of death, he argues, is not in the event itself, but in our judgment that death is terrible. This isn't just wordplay, it's a profound shift in responsibility. We often feel like victims of external events, as if the world is constantly doing things to us, making us feel a certain way. Epictetus hands the power back to us. He reveals that between an event and our emotional reaction, there is a crucial, often invisible space. In that space lies our power of judgment, and it is within that space that we can choose to see the event for what it is, not for the story we instinctively tell ourselves about it. Let's bring this down to a simple, everyday scenario. Imagine you've been looking forward to a picnic for days. You've packed the basket, invited friends, and are ready for a perfect afternoon in the sun. Then, as you're about to leave, you look outside and see dark clouds rolling in. Within minutes, a steady rain begins to fall. The automatic, unconscious judgment is immediate. This is awful. This is so unfair, the whole day is ruined. This judgment triggers a cascade of disappointment, frustration, and maybe even anger. Now, let's apply the Stoic discipline of assent. The objective facts are these: water is falling from the sky, the ground is becoming wet, your plan to eat outdoors is now less feasible, that is all. There is no inherent badness in the rain. It is a natural meteorological event. By consciously stripping away the value judgment, you drain the situation of its emotional charge. The rain hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. From this neutral vantage point, you can now respond rationally instead of reacting emotionally. You can pivot, you can move the picnic indoors, creating a cozy, memorable gathering. You can reschedule for another day and use the rainy afternoon to finally read that book you've been meaning to. Or you can even choose to go for a walk in the rain, enjoying the fresh, clean smell and the quiet patter on your umbrella. The obstacle hasn't disappeared, but your ability to navigate it with grace and creativity has dramatically increased because you are no longer fighting the story that it shouldn't be happening. This practice is equally potent for handling social interactions and professional feedback. Suppose a colleague makes a critical comment about a project you've worked hard on. The raw, unexamined judgment might be, "They're attacking me, they don't respect my work, this is so insulting." This interpretation will likely lead to defensiveness, resentment, or a tense confrontation. But if you apply objective judgment, you first settle on the facts. The fact is, my colleague uttered a series of words that constituted a critique. That is all. You can then choose to examine the content of the critique neutrally. Is there any useful information here? Is there a grain of truth I can use to improve? Perhaps their delivery was poor, but their point is valid. By separating the event from your initial, emotionally laden interpretation, you transform a potential conflict into a potential opportunity for growth. You can respond with curiosity instead of defensiveness, saying, "Thank you for the feedback. Can you help me understand which specific part you think needs improvement? This approach de-escalates the situation and positions you as a confident, rational professional who is focused on results, not ego. To truly integrate this principle into your daily life, I encourage you to begin a simple but transformative practice of awareness. Sometime today, make it your mission to catch yourself in the act of applying a negative judgment. It could be something as minor as spilling a little coffee on your desk, or as significant as receiving some unsettling news. The moment you feel that familiar surge of frustration, annoyance, or worry, I want you to press a mental pause button. In that still moment, ask yourself this question: what are the bare, objective facts of this situation, separate from the story I'm telling myself about it? Describe the event to yourself as a neutral observer or a scientist collecting data. The liquid in my cup has transferred to the surface of my desk. A piece of information has arrived that differs from my expectations. This act of mental separation is a skill, and like any skill, it requires practice. It might feel awkward or forced at first, but with consistency, it will become a natural first response. Each time you successfully see the event for what it is, rather than what you fear it means, you are strengthening your capacity for objective judgment. You are building the invisible strength of a mind that remains clear and calm, not because the world has become less challenging, but because you have learned to meet its challenges without first dressing them in the heavy garments of your own anxiety and fear. Seneca wrote more about the power of silence than the power of speech, and for a society as verbose and reactive as our own, this Stoic principle feels almost revolutionary. In a world that constantly urges us to have an opinion, to clap back, to get the last word in, the deliberate choice to remain silent can be misconstrued as weakness, as a lack of something to say. But the Stoics saw it as the ultimate expression of inner fortitude. This art of silence is not about being passive or disengaged. It is an active, powerful form of restraint. It is the conscious decision to withhold a reaction, to create a space between a provocation and your response. In that space, you reclaim your sovereignty. You step out of the automatic, emotional ping-pong of conflict and into the calm command center of your own mind. This practice is about understanding that your words are not just sounds you make. They are extensions of your inner state, and by mastering their flow, you master a significant part of your peace. In his work on anger, Seneca delves deeply into this idea, providing a quote that cuts to the core of the matter. He advises, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." This single sentence contains a universe of practical wisdom. Anger and many other reactive emotions are like a fire. They flare up intensely but often burn out quickly if deprived of fuel. Your immediate, unconsidered words are that fuel. By imposing a delay, by choosing silence in that critical first moment, you are starving the emotional fire. You are giving your rational mind, your inner citadel, a chance to mobilize its defenses. Seneca isn't suggesting you suppress your feelings indefinitely, but that you refuse to be their puppet in the heat of the moment. He argues that the first spark of anger is often involuntary, a quick physiological jolt. But what happens next, the second movement, the decision to speak or act, that is entirely within our control. Holding your tongue is the physical manifestation of that control. It is the active practice of choosing your inner peace over the temporary, hollow satisfaction of a sharp retort. Consider a scenario that plays out in countless offices and homes. A colleague sends you a sharply worded email, publicly criticizing a minor error you made in a report. The message feels like a personal attack designed to embarrass you. The immediate, visceral reaction is a surge of heat, a tightening in your chest, and your fingers flying to the keyboard to craft a defensive, equally sharp, or perhaps sarcastic reply. This is the natural, untrained response. Now, imagine applying the Stoic art of silence. You read the email, you feel the anger rise, and then you consciously decide to do nothing. You close the email, you stand up and walk away from your desk, you get a glass of water, you breathe. For the next hour, or even until the next day, you impose a voluntary silence. You do not respond. During this pause, several transformative things happen. The initial, white-hot intensity of your anger begins to cool, allowing you to see the situation with more clarity. You might start to consider possibilities you were blind to in your rage. Perhaps your colleague is under immense pressure themselves and inadvertently took it out on you. Maybe their criticism, though poorly delivered, contains a tiny nugget of truth you can use to improve. Almost certainly, you realize that a public, heated exchange will only damage your professional reputation and create lasting animosity. When you finally do choose to respond, it is not a reaction but a calculated action. You might approach them in person and say calmly, "I saw your email about the report. I'd like to understand your concerns better. Can we talk about it?" This response, born from silence, demonstrates immense strength and control. It de-escalates the situation completely and positions you as the mature, composed party. The person who provoked you is often left disarmed, their own anger having nowhere to land. This power of restraint extends far beyond written conflict. Imagine being in a heated family discussion where old, painful arguments are threatening to resurface. A relative says something designed to provoke you, to get a rise out of you. The entire dynamic of such arguments often depends on predictable, emotional reactions. When you instead choose to meet their provocation with a calm, measured silence, you break the cycle. You refuse to play your assigned part in the familiar drama. Your silence in that moment is not weakness, it is a deafening statement of strength. It communicates that you are no longer willing to engage on those toxic terms. This can be far more powerful than any clever retort because it changes the very rules of the game. It protects your inner peace by refusing to allow external chaos to dictate your internal state. The art of silence is, therefore, a form of spiritual and emotional self-defense, a way to guard the gates of your mind against the invading forces of anger and pettiness. To truly integrate this profound principle into your own life, I invite you to undertake a simple but powerful practice tomorrow. I want you to commit to practicing what I call the Stoic pause. Your mission for the day is to consciously create a space of silence before you respond in any situation that triggers a strong emotional reaction, be it anger, defensiveness, or even intense excitement. The moment you feel that internal trigger pulled, your task is to pause. You might physically bite your tongue, count slowly to 10 in your head, or simply take one deep, intentional breath. In that small pocket of silence, you are not deciding what to say. You are merely deciding not to speak immediately. You are giving your higher mind a chance to engage. You are exercising the muscle of restraint. It doesn't mean you will never respond. It means your response will be a choice, not a reflex. Tomorrow, make it your goal to catch just one heated moment and apply this pause. Notice how it feels to hold that power within you, to be the calm eye of the storm rather than being tossed about by its winds. This single practice, repeated over time, can rewire your default reactions, transforming the art of silence from a philosophical concept into a lived source of unshakable, quiet strength. The Stoics saw themselves as citizens of the world, bound to others in a web of mutual fate. This profound sense of interconnectedness is captured in their principle of Sympathya, a concept that suggests the entire universe is a single, living organism, and each of us is an inseparable part of that greater whole. When you feel isolated in your struggles, when the weight of a personal challenge seems yours to bear alone, this Stoic perspective offers a powerful antidote. It reminds you that you are not a solitary island, but a vital limb of a vast cosmic body. Your well-being is intrinsically linked to the well-being of others, and your resilience is not just a personal asset but a contribution to the collective strength of humanity. This shift in perspective, from a solitary individual to a citizen of the world, instantly reduces the loneliness that often amplifies our suffering and replaces it with a profound sense of belonging and shared purpose. Your battles are not just your own, they are part of the human condition, and by facing them with courage, you play your part in the grand, unfolding story of our species. Marcus Aurelius, from the pinnacle of imperial power, constantly returned to this humbling and unifying idea to guide his actions and maintain his own equilibrium. In his meditations, he offers a beautiful and practical image to illustrate this point. He writes, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." In this simple metaphor, your life is the bee, and the hive is the community of all rational beings. If your actions are harmful or self-centered, they ultimately damage the entire structure you depend on, and by extension, yourself. He expands on this with even greater clarity, advising himself, "You have been a citizen of this great world. What difference does it make to you whether for 5 years or 50? For what is in conformity with the laws is just for all." Here, he reinforces the duty that comes with this cosmic citizenship. Our purpose is not to live for ourselves alone, but to act in accordance with the universal law of reason, which dictates cooperation, kindness, and justice for all. This worldview transforms resilience from a selfish endeavor into a noble service. When you cultivate inner strength, you are not just helping yourself weather a storm, you are strengthening the entire hive, ensuring you can continue to contribute, to support, and to play your part effectively. Let's translate this ancient wisdom into a tangible, modern action. Imagine you're having a profoundly difficult day. Perhaps you've received bad news, or you're feeling overwhelmed by a personal failure. The natural, inward-turning impulse is to retreat, to curl up in a ball of self-pity and disconnect from the world. In that moment, your sense of isolation can feel absolute. Now apply the principle of Sympathya. Instead of turning further inward, make the conscious, counterintuitive choice to turn outward. The next time you are walking down the street, notice an elderly neighbor struggling with their groceries and offer to carry a bag. See a young parent looking stressed while managing a stroller and hold the door open for them with a genuine smile. Stop to help someone who looks lost. This small, seemingly insignificant act of kindness is far more than just a good deed. It is a physical enactment of your interconnectedness. In that moment of connection, you are actively reinforcing the web of mutual fate. You are reminding yourself through action that you are part of something larger. The fascinating result is that this outward-focused action doesn't drain your remaining energy, it replenishes it. The gratitude in the other person's eyes, the simple human connection, the feeling of being useful, these things nourish your own spirit and fortify your resilience. You walk away from that interaction feeling less alone and more grounded, because you have actively participated in the shared project of being human. This practice extends beyond random acts of kindness to our daily interactions. Consider how you engage with the barista who makes your coffee, the customer service representative on the phone, or the colleague you pass in the hallway. Seeing these individuals through the lens of Sympathya means recognizing them as fellow citizens, as other limbs of the same body, each with their own struggles, hopes, and invisible battles. When someone is short with you or makes a mistake, instead of reacting with immediate irritation, you can pause and consider the Stoic view. This person is part of your universal community. Perhaps they are carrying a weight you know nothing about. Choosing to respond with patience and understanding in that moment is not just being nice, it is an exercise in cosmic citizenship. It is an affirmation that their well-being is connected to your own, and that by contributing to a more harmonious interaction, you are strengthening the entire social fabric that supports you both. This perspective fosters a resilient compassion that is not easily shaken by the minor friction of daily life. To truly feel the power of this principle, I encourage you to make it active in your life before this day is over. Your challenge is to perform one deliberate, small act of kindness for someone else. It doesn't need to be grand or time-consuming. It could be sending a thoughtful text message to a friend you know is having a hard time, offering a specific word of praise to a coworker for their effort, or buying a meal for the person behind you in a drive-through. As you perform this action, I want you to engage in a brief moment of reflection both before and after. Before you act, pause and bring to mind the Stoic concept of Sympathya. Silently acknowledge, this person and I are part of the same whole. Our fates are intertwined. Then, after you have completed your act of kindness, take another moment to observe the internal shift. How does it feel to have actively strengthened that web of connection? Notice any change in your own emotional state, your sense of isolation, or your personal resolve. This simple exercise is a direct way to experience how fostering resilience in the world around you simultaneously builds a deeper, more enduring resilience within yourself, rooted in the unshakable truth that we are all in this together. Apatheia is often misunderstood. It's about mastering passions, not lacking feeling. In our modern language, the word apathy suggests a cold indifference, a numb disconnection from the world around us. But the Stoic ideal of apatheia is something entirely different and far more powerful. It is not the absence of emotion, but the liberation from being tyrannized by our emotions. Imagine your feelings not as your master, but as a powerful horse. Apathy would be a dead horse, useless and unmoving. Apatheia, however, is the skill of an expert rider. You acknowledge the horse's immense power, you feel its energy, but you hold the reins. You guide its force with purpose and direction, ensuring it carries you forward rather than bolting wildly off a cliff. This is the steady state the Stoics sought. A mind where emotions are felt, recognized, and then subjected to the clear light of reason before any action is taken. It is the cultivation of an inner equilibrium where you experience life fully without being overwhelmed by its storms, allowing you to respond to events from a place of choice rather than chaotic reaction. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, who himself endured the profound hardship of slavery, provides incredibly practical guidance on how to achieve this freedom. In his discourses, he offers a powerful method for handling the initial, involuntary jolt of a strong emotion. He advises, don't let the force of an impression when it first hits you knock you off your feet. Just say to it, hold on a moment, let me see who you are and what you represent. Let me put you to the test. This is the essential pause, the critical space between feeling and action. Epictetus isn't telling us to never feel fear or anger. He is instructing us to become detectives of our own inner world. When a wave of anxiety about a presentation hits you, instead of being swept away into a spiral of catastrophic thinking, you learn to say, hold on, anxiety. What are you really? You are a sensation in my body and a series of thoughts about the future. Let me examine these thoughts. Are they rational? What is within my control right now? This process of examination is the practice of apatheia. It is the application of reason as a filter, straining out the destructive, irrational elements of a passion so that what remains is a clear, actionable insight. Consider a very concrete, modern application of this principle. Imagine you've worked for months on a major project at work, pouring your heart and soul into it. You present it to the leadership team, and the following day you receive an email from your manager. The feedback is overwhelmingly negative. The project has been rejected, and your approach has been fundamentally criticized. The first raw, involuntary reaction is a sucker punch to the gut, a surge of shame, a flood of anger, a deep sense of injustice and failure. This initial feeling is natural and, according to the Stoics, unavoidable. The practice of Apatheia begins in the very next moment. Instead of immediately firing off a defensive email or spiraling into a day of despair and self-recrimination, you enact the Epictetus pause. You close the email, you walk away from your computer, you acknowledge the storm of emotion inside you. I feel shame, I feel anger, without judging yourself for feeling it. Then you begin the rational assessment. You ask yourself, what are the facts of this situation separate from my feelings about it? The project was not approved. Specific criticisms were raised. That is the neutral data. Now, what is within my control? I control my response. I control whether I learn from this. I can choose to request a meeting to understand the feedback more deeply. I can analyze the criticisms to see if there is valid information that can help me improve in the future. By engaging in this process, you transform the emotional tsunami into a series of manageable questions. The passion of despair is not allowed to dictate a permanent story of failure. The passion of anger is not permitted to burn professional bridges. You feel the sting, but you are not poisoned by it. You process the event without being shattered by it, and you emerge with your dignity intact and a clear path forward, guided by reason rather than wounded pride. This practice extends to every corner of our emotional lives, from the searing heat of jealousy to the chilling grip of fear. Suppose you feel a pang of jealousy when a colleague receives a promotion you had hoped for. The untrained mind might indulge this passion, weaving narratives of favoritism and personal inadequacy, leading to bitterness and resentment. Apatheia asks you to pause and interrogate that jealousy. What judgment is causing this feeling? Is it the belief that you deserve the promotion more? Is that a rational and helpful belief? By examining it, you might realize that your colleague's success does not diminish your own worth or future potential. You can then choose to congratulate them sincerely and refocus your energy on your own controllable efforts, thus converting a destructive passion into a motivator for self-improvement. The goal is never to become an unfeeling robot, but to become a person whose feelings are integrated with their wisdom, creating a life of profound emotional resilience and purposeful action. To truly understand this principle in the context of your own experience, I invite you to engage in a brief exercise of reflection. Look back over your day today and identify one instance where you felt a strong, overwhelming emotion. It could have been a flash of road rage during your commute, a spike of anxiety before a meeting, a wave of frustration when a technology failed you, or even a moment of intense excitement over some good news. Now replay that moment in your mind. First, simply acknowledge the emotion without judgment. Then, apply the Stoic lens of Apatheia. Imagine yourself creating that crucial pause that Epictetus described. In that space, ask the emotion, what do you represent? What is the underlying judgment here? If it was anger, was it rooted in the judgment that someone should have acted differently? If it was anxiety, was it based on the judgment that a future outcome is a matter of life and death? Finally, consider how you might have responded if you had approached the situation with this practiced freedom. How would your words or actions have differed if they had been guided by a calm assessment rather than the raw, unchecked passion itself? This act of mental rehearsal is not about critiquing your past self, but about training your future self. It is in these small, daily observations that you begin to build the habit of apatheia, slowly strengthening your capacity to experience the full, rich tapestry of human emotion while remaining the clear-eyed master of your own life. Are your actions driven by impulse or by deliberate purpose? This is the central question of the Stoic discipline of action, a practice that moves us beyond simply doing things to acting with conscious intent. It's the difference between being a leaf blown by the winds of every passing whim and being the captain of a ship steadily navigating toward a chosen destination. This discipline asks us to pause before we act, to insert a moment of reflection between an impulse and its execution, ensuring that what we do is aligned not with fleeting desires or social pressures, but with our deepest values and a rational understanding of what is truly good. It's about ensuring that our energy is invested in actions that are virtuous, beneficial to the common welfare, and in harmony with the nature of a rational being. When we act with this kind of purpose, our efforts become inherently more resilient. They are no longer vulnerable to every shift in mood or external opinion because they are anchored in something unshakable within us. A purpose-driven action might fail in its immediate goal, but it can never be a complete failure because the act itself was virtuous, it was right, it was just, it was courageous. This transforms our entire relationship with effort and outcome, freeing us from the roller coaster of results and allowing us to find fulfillment in the quality of our actions themselves. Marcus Aurelius provides a powerful mental framework for cultivating this discipline. He advises, "Let every action aim solely at the common good." This single instruction acts as a brilliant filter for our intentions. Before you speak, before you make a decision, before you invest your time in a task, you can run it through this simple test. Is this aimed at the common good? Does it serve a purpose beyond my own immediate gratification or comfort? This doesn't mean every action must be a grand, world-changing gesture. It means that even small acts, helping a colleague, speaking with kindness to a stranger, doing your job with integrity, can be infused with this higher purpose. In another poignant reflection, he urges himself, do every act of your life as if it were your last. This isn't about a morbid frenzy, but about a profound focus on quality and intention. If this were truly your final action, would you do it with half-hearted distraction? Would you do it with bitterness or resentment? Or would you pour your entire being into it, ensuring it was done with excellence, integrity, and a sense of its rightful place in the tapestry of your life? This perspective infuses even the most mundane tasks with a sacred significance, compelling us to act with a purpose and presence that makes our efforts both meaningful and resilient to the trivialities that so often derail us. Let's bring this principle down to the practical level of our daily to-do lists. Most of us have a running mental or physical list of tasks we need to accomplish. Emails to answer, errands to run, projects to complete. The default mode is often to simply power through them, checking boxes as quickly as possible to clear the deck. The discipline of action asks us to stop this autopilot and bring a moment of conscious evaluation to these tasks. Take a work project, for instance. Instead of just diving in because it's assigned to you, pause for 60 seconds and ask, what is the higher purpose of this project? Is it to create something of genuine value for our customers? Is it to support my team in a meaningful way? Is it to develop a skill that will allow me to contribute more effectively? If you cannot connect the task to a deeper value, if its only purpose is to satisfy a bureaucratic requirement or to make a number look slightly better in a report that no one will read, then this discipline prompts you to reconsider your approach. Perhaps you can find a way to reframe the task, to inject it with your own purpose, or to complete it in a way that aligns with your core values of diligence and excellence. even if the project itself is flawed. This transforms the work from a soul-draining chore into a personal practice in virtue. This applies with equal force to our personal lives. Consider the simple act of scrolling through social media. The impulse is often mindless, a flick of the thumb driven by boredom or a faint anxiety that you're missing out. The discipline of action would have you pause and ask, what is my purpose in doing this right now? Is it to genuinely connect with a friend? Is it to gather information on a topic I care about? If the honest answer is that there is no deliberate purpose, that it is pure impulse, then this discipline gives you the power to choose differently. You could close the app and use those 5 minutes to send a thoughtful message to someone you love, or to read a page of a book that enriches your mind. In that small choice, you have moved from being a passive consumer of whatever the algorithm feeds you to an active, purposeful agent in your own life. You have infused a moment with intent, and in doing so, you have strengthened your capacity for resilient, value-driven action in more significant areas. To make this more than just an interesting idea, I want to issue you a direct and practical challenge. Sometime in the next 24 hours, I want you to pull out your actual to-do list, whether it's in a planner, an app, or just in your head. Look at the tasks you have planned for the day. Now pick just one single item and subject it to the Stoic discipline of action. Ask yourself, what is the deeper, purposeful intent behind this task? Is it merely something I feel I should do? Or is it an action that aligns with my core values and contributes to the common good in some way, however small? If the purpose feels shallow or misaligned, see if you can redefine the task to infuse it with more meaning. For example, if the task is grocery shopping and it feels like a tedious chore, can you reframe its purpose? Perhaps its purpose is to nourish my body and the bodies of my family with healthy food, or to practice mindfulness and gratitude as I select sustenance for another day. This subtle shift in perspective doesn't change the action, but it completely transforms the energy and attention you bring to it. You are no longer just pushing a cart, you are performing an act of care and presence. This is how we build a life of purpose, not through grand, one-time decisions, but through the daily, deliberate infusion of intent into the ordinary actions that make up our days. By starting with just one task, you begin the practice of ensuring that your actions are not just motions you go through, but expressions of the person you choose to be. The obstacle in the path becomes the path. This is the brilliant Stoic twist, a complete alchemy of perception that transforms every barrier you face from a roadblock into the very road itself. This principle is not about naive optimism or pretending that difficulties are pleasant. It is about a radical and pragmatic shift in how we interpret the events of our lives. An obstacle, by its very nature, is something that stands in the way of your intended plan. The conventional response is to see it as a nuisance, a failure, or a reason to quit. The Stoic response is to see it as an invitation, an opportunity sent by fate to practice a specific virtue you would not have otherwise developed. That traffic jam is not just stolen time, it is a drill in patience. That difficult colleague is not just an annoyance, they are your personal trainer for practicing understanding and maintaining your composure. That financial setback is not just a loss, it is a forced lesson in resourcefulness and a clarifying moment about what you truly value. The obstacle doesn't change, but your relationship to it is utterly transformed the moment you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What virtue does this situation require of me?" Marcus Aurelius, facing countless military, political, and personal challenges, embedded this mindset into the core of his philosophy. He offers one of the most direct and empowering statements on this subject: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Let that sink in for a moment. The thing blocking you is not a stop sign. It is part of the direction. He is telling us that the resistance we meet is not separate from the journey of achievement and character building. It is an essential component of it. A ship is not built for calm harbors. It is built for the open sea with all its storms and currents. In the same way, our character is not forged in times of ease and comfort, but precisely in those moments when we are tested, when our plans are disrupted, and when we are forced to dig deeper than we thought possible. The obstacle is the training ground. It is the specific, custom-designed circumstance that allows your courage to become more than a word, your patience to become more than a concept, and your creativity to become a tangible force for problem solving. We can see this principle brought to life not just in ancient texts, but throughout history in the stories of those who achieved great things. Consider Thomas Edison, whose name is synonymous with relentless perseverance. When his laboratory complex in West Orange, New Jersey, burned to the ground in a devastating fire, destroying years of prototypes and research, he didn't collapse in despair. He reportedly told his son, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." In that moment, the colossal obstacle of the fire became the path. It became the path to rebuilding a better, more efficient facility. It became the path to letting go of outdated ideas. It became the path to demonstrating a level of resilience that would inspire his team and define his legacy. Similarly, each of the thousands of failed prototypes for the light bulb was not a failure in his eyes, but a discovery of another way that did not work. Each one a necessary step that advanced him closer to the one that would. He was practicing the Stoic twist long before it had a name, using every impediment as fuel for his relentless forward motion. This mindset is just as powerful and applicable to the challenges of our own, far more ordinary lives. Imagine you are passed over for a promotion you worked incredibly hard for. The immediate, raw interpretation is one of rejection and failure, a clear obstacle to your career progression. The conventional reaction might be bitterness, a loss of motivation, or a desire to lash out. Now, apply the Stoic twist. How can this obstacle become the path? It becomes the path to honest self-assessment. It forces you to ask difficult questions. What skills did I lack? How can I improve my visibility or communication? It becomes the path to developing humility and resilience in the face of disappointment. It might even become the path to a much more significant opportunity elsewhere, one you would never have considered had you received that promotion. The obstacle in this case didn't block your path. It revealed a new and perhaps better one. Or consider a personal health diagnosis that forces you to change your lifestyle. It's a terrifying obstacle to the life you knew, but through the Stoic lens, it becomes the path. It becomes the path to learning about nutrition and fitness, to cultivating discipline, to appreciating the fragility and beauty of your body in a way you never did before, and to discovering a newfound strength you never knew you possessed. To truly integrate this transformative principle, I want you to bring it into your own world right now. Bring to mind one specific current obstacle you are facing. It doesn't have to be a life-shattering problem. It could be a persistent source of daily frustration, a project that seems stalled, a relationship tension, or a personal goal that feels out of reach. Now take a piece of paper or open a new note on your device, and at the top, write down that obstacle. Below it, create 2 columns. In the first column, list the conventional ways of seeing this obstacle, the story you've been telling yourself about why it's a problem and how it's holding you back. Then, in the second column, I want you to brainstorm. This is where you perform the alchemy. Ask yourself, if this obstacle is the path, what virtues could it be inviting me to practice? Is it a chance to build courage by having a difficult conversation? Is it an opportunity to cultivate patience as I work through a slow, frustrating process? Is it a demand for creativity to find a solution I haven't considered before? How could this very block be secretly advancing my work, just as Marcus Aurelius suggested? Write down every possible way this obstacle could be transformed into an advantage, no matter how far-fetched it seems. This simple act of reframing is not a magic trick that will make the obstacle vanish, but it is the first and most crucial step in reclaiming your power. It moves you from a passive position of being blocked to an active position of navigating, using the obstacle itself as your raw material for building a stronger, wiser, and more capable version of yourself. The Stoics were masters of presence long before mindfulness became trendy. They understood a fundamental truth that modern psychology has only recently begun to champion: that our power to act, to choose, and to experience peace is located exclusively in the present moment. While we physically exist in the here and now, our minds are often time travelers, endlessly journeying into a past we cannot change or a future we cannot predict. This mental time travel is the primary factory where anxiety is manufactured. We borrow trouble, as Seneca so brilliantly observed, by agonizing over future possibilities that may never come to pass. He wrote, "We are in the habit of exaggerating or imagining or anticipating sorrow. This is the essence of so much of our mental suffering. It is not the present reality that burdens us, but the ghost of what has been and the phantom of what might be." The present moment, by contrast, is almost always manageable. Even in the midst of genuine difficulty, the raw experience of now is typically something you can breathe through, something you can observe, something you can respond to with a single, small, deliberate action. The past is a finished story, and the future is a collection of possibilities. Your power resides solely in the current chapter you are actively writing. This teaching is not a call to ignore the lessons of the past or to forego planning for the future. The Stoics were deeply practical, and planning is a rational action taken in the present. The distinction lies in where you place your mental dwelling. To learn from the past is to extract wisdom from a closed book and then set it back on the shelf. To plan for the future is to make a thoughtful map in the present moment and then fold it away, trusting you will consult it when you arrive at the crossroads. Anxiety and regret, however, occur when we move into those other time zones and set up a permanent residence. We reread the same painful chapters of the past until the ink bleeds into our current mood, or we stare at the future map with such intensity that we become terrified of every potential detour and dragon sketched upon it. The Stoic practice of presence is the conscious decision to live in your current address. It is the recognition that the only real material you have to work with is this breath, this sensation, this single, actionable step directly in front of you. Everything else is a story, a simulation, a mental fabrication that drains the vitality from the only moment you ever truly possess. A wonderfully simple way to cultivate this presence is to challenge the modern tyranny of multitasking by committing to periods of intense single-tasking. Choose one routine activity and decide to do it with your complete and undivided attention. For example, the next time you drink a cup of tea or coffee, make that the sole purpose of your existence for 5 minutes. Do not check your phone, do not mentally rehearse your schedule, do not even think about the taste, simply experience it. Feel the warmth of the mug in your hands. Notice the subtle shifts in the aroma as the steam rises. Watch the way the light plays on the surface of the liquid. When you take a sip, let your entire awareness rest on the complex sensation of temperature, texture, and flavor. You will likely find that your mind wanders almost immediately, pulled back to a worry or a to-do list. This is not a failure. The practice is the gentle, non-judgmental act of noticing the wandering and escorting your attention back to the simple, physical reality of the drink. In that small, repeated act of return, you are performing a powerful rep for your mental muscles. You are training your mind to inhabit the present, strengthening your ability to disengage from the exhausting simulations of past and future, and anchor yourself in the tangible, manageable reality of the now. This principle extends far beyond a quiet tea break. You can apply it to a work task by closing all unnecessary browser tabs and notifications and dedicating a 25-minute block to that one report or email. You can apply it to a conversation by consciously setting aside your phone, making eye contact, and truly listening to what the other person is saying without formulating your response while they speak. You can even apply it to a mundane chore like washing dishes, feeling the warmth of the water and the texture of the bubbles, turning a resented task into a small, sensory meditation. In each of these instances, you are not just completing an activity more efficiently, you are making a profound statement about where you choose to place your power. You are declaring that you will not be kidnapped by regret or held hostage by worry. You are choosing to fully inhabit the life you are actually living, moment by moment, rather than the phantom lives your mind can so easily create. To truly feel the transformative potential of this Stoic teaching, I invite you to a direct experiment. Sometime before this day ends, I want you to carve out just 5 minutes. Find a simple activity. It could be drinking a warm beverage, looking out a window, or even just sitting quietly and focusing on the sensation of your breath. For these 5 minutes, your only job is to be fully there. When your mind inevitably drifts to a past mistake or a future anxiety, acknowledge the thought without judgment and gently guide your attention back to the physical anchor you have chosen, the taste, the sight, the feeling of your breath. Do not strive for a perfectly empty mind. Strive for a mind that knows where it lives. Notice what happens. Do those 5 minutes feel longer or shorter than usual? Does the simple activity feel different when it receives your undivided attention? This is not about achieving a blissful state. It is about practicing the fundamental Stoic skill of claiming your power, which is never found in yesterday or tomorrow, but only ever in the vivid, immediate, and potent reality of now. To the Stoics, nature wasn't just trees and rivers. It was the cosmic logic governing all things. This concept, known as the Logos, represents the intelligent, rational principle that permeates the entire universe, from the orderly motion of the planets to the changing of the seasons, and even the capacity for reason within our own minds. Living in accordance with nature, therefore, is the ultimate Stoic goal. It means consciously aligning our own will and actions with this grand, rational order, rather than fighting against it. Think of it as learning to swim with the current of a powerful river instead of exhausting yourself by trying to swim upstream. The river's flow is the Logos. It has a direction and a logic of its own. When you understand its currents and work with them, you move with grace and efficiency. When you ignorantly fight against it, you thrash about, quickly becoming tired, frustrated, and eventually overwhelmed. This alignment is not a passive surrender. It is an active, intelligent cooperation with reality itself, and it is the very source of the unshakable inner harmony and resilience the Stoics sought. The founder of Stoicism, Zeno of Citium, and his successor, Cleans, laid the philosophical groundwork for this idea. They taught that the universe is not a chaotic accident, but a single, living, rational being, a divine fire of intelligence. Cleans, in his famous hymn to Zeus, beautifully captures this sentiment, addressing the Logos as the universal law, which all things obey throughout the universe as they move wherever you guide them. This is a profound vision of a cosmos knit together by reason. Our role, as human beings gifted with a fragment of this divine reason, is to consciously recognize our place within this whole. We are not alien observers dropped into a random world. We are integral parts of a vast, intelligent system. To live contrary to nature, then, is to live irrationally. It is to rage against the weather, to be shattered by the inevitability of aging, or to desperately cling to a situation that the universe is clearly moving on from. Alignment with nature means using our own reason to discern the universal reason at work in events, and then choosing to flow with it, thereby finding our own peace within the greater peace of the cosmos. Let's make this cosmic principle intensely practical. Consider the natural rhythm of the seasons. Spring brings growth and new beginnings. Summer is a time of flourishing and abundance. Autumn is a period of harvesting and release, and winter is a phase of rest and conservation. We intuitively understand and accept this cycle in the natural world. Now, apply this same lens to the seasons of your own life. A career shift, for instance, can be seen through this naturalistic framework. Perhaps you have been in a role for many years, a long, productive summer of your professional life. But then, things begin to change. The work feels stale, opportunities dry up, or the industry itself transforms. The conventional, fearful response is to cling desperately to that summer, to pretend the autumn winds aren't blowing. You might pour more energy into a dying venture, fueled by anxiety and a refusal to accept the changing season. This is living against nature. The Stoic approach, living in accordance with nature, would be to recognize the shift for what it is, a natural, necessary transition. Autumn has arrived in your career. This is not a catastrophe. It is a part of the cycle. It is a time to harvest the skills and wisdom you've gained and to consciously let go of what is no longer serving its purpose. It is a time to prepare the soil for a new planting. This mindset transforms a potentially terrifying event into a manageable, even purposeful phase. It allows you to navigate the change with dignity and foresight, trusting that after the autumn and winter, a new spring will inevitably follow. This principle extends far beyond major life transitions. Think about the natural human life cycle itself: youth, adulthood, and old age. Our culture often fights viciously against the later stages, pouring immense resources into hiding the signs of aging and clinging to youth. Living in accordance with nature would mean embracing each stage for its unique gifts and responsibilities. The energy and idealism of youth are natural. The wisdom and perspective of age are equally natural and valuable. To resist this is to create inner turmoil. Similarly, consider the natural need for rest. We live in a society that glorifies constant busyness, often at the expense of sleep and downtime. But nature has built a rhythm of activity and rest into every living creature. By ignoring our body's natural need for sleep in order to push through more work, we are acting against our own nature, and our physical and mental health will inevitably pay the price. Aligning with nature in this case is as simple as honoring your need for a full night's rest, seeing it not as laziness, but as a rational act of maintaining the instrument through which you live your life, your body. To truly integrate this profound wisdom, I encourage you to take a quiet moment for honest self-reflection. Look at the landscape of your own life and identify one area where you feel a persistent sense of struggle, frustration, or resistance. Where are you, in essence, trying to swim upstream? Is it in a relationship that has clearly run its natural course, where you are holding on out of fear or habit rather than genuine connection? Is it in your physical health, where you are resisting the natural need for better nutrition or more movement? Is it in your emotional life, where you are fighting against a feeling like grief or sadness, believing you shouldn't feel that way instead of allowing it its natural passage. Once you have identified this area, ask yourself a simple but powerful question. What would it look like to align with the natural flow here? If this situation were a season, what season would it be, and what does that season call for? If it's a winter, it might call for acceptance, rest, and quiet planning. If it's an autumn, it might call for gratitude for what was and the courage to let go. By performing this simple act of reflection, you are not giving up. You are stepping into a more intelligent and harmonious relationship with reality. You are choosing to use your reason to discern the logos at work in your own life, and in doing so, you unlock a deep and resilient peace that comes from no longer fighting the current of the universe, but learning to navigate it with wisdom and grace. Before bed, Marcus Aurelius listed what he was grateful for, not what he lacked. In his private meditations, the emperor would meticulously reflect on the people and circumstances that had benefited him, from the qualities of his family and teachers to the simple fact of having another day to live with reason and purpose. This was not a feel-good exercise in positive thinking. It was a disciplined, strategic practice for building an unshakable foundation of contentment. In a world that constantly whispers about what we do not have, the Stoic habit of gratitude actively trains the mind to see and appreciate the abundance that is already present. This shift in focus is a profound act of mental fortification. When your attention is anchored to what is good and what works, you are far less vulnerable to the storms of desire, envy, and disappointment. Gratitude, in the Stoic sense, is the conscious cultivation of a rich inner world, making you resilient to the inevitable fluctuations of the external one. It is the realization that your peace does not depend on acquiring more, but on fully valuing what you already possess. Seneca, in his profound letters, expands this concept to its most radical and empowering conclusion. He advises giving thanks not only for comforts but for challenges themselves. In his moral letters to Lucilius, he writes, "Let us greet the difficulties with courage and welcome them as promoters of health." He urges us to understand that misfortunes are not punishments but tests, and that a grateful heart can find value even in hardship. He suggests we should say to ourselves, "It is for my own sake that I am experiencing this." This transforms the entire landscape of our experience. A financial setback is no longer just a loss. It becomes a teacher of frugality and a clarifier of true necessity. A difficult person in your life is no longer merely an annoyance. They become a sparring partner for your patience and understanding. A period of illness is not pure suffering. It is a forced pause that can teach you the profound value of health and the fragility of the body. By practicing gratitude for the obstacles, you perform a kind of psychological alchemy, turning the lead of hardship into the gold of character. This does not mean pretending pain feels good, but rather recognizing that within every difficulty lies a seed of strength, if only we have the perspective to water it. Implementing this practice is wonderfully straightforward and requires nothing more than a few minutes and a notebook each night. The ritual of keeping a nightly gratitude journal is a powerful way to bookend your day with a focus on sufficiency rather than scarcity. The key is in the specifics. Instead of writing vague generalities like, "I'm grateful for my family," challenge yourself to note precise, concrete moments. For example, you might write, "I am grateful for the way my partner smiled at me this morning before leaving for work," or "I am grateful for the warmth of the sun on my face during my walk," or even, "I am grateful for the hot water in my shower and the feeling of being clean." This specificity forces you to actively scan your day for positive data points, training your brain to become a better detector of goodness. More importantly, following Seneca's guidance, Make one of your 3 daily entries a gratitude for a challenge or a difficulty. This could be as simple as, I am grateful for the frustration I felt in traffic today, as it gave me a chance to practice patience, or I am grateful for the critical feedback I received, as it highlights an area where I can grow. This single act ensures that you are not just practicing a passive gratitude for pleasantries, but an active, resilient gratitude that embraces the full spectrum of a human life, transforming every experience into fuel for your inner citadel. To truly begin weaving this resilient thread into the fabric of your own life, I extend a direct and simple invitation. Tonight, before you turn out the light, take a moment to reach for a notebook or even the Notes app on your phone. Write down 3 specific things you are genuinely grateful for from this day. Let the first 2 be sources of comfort or joy, no matter how small: the taste of a good meal, the sound of laughter, a task completed. Then, for the third, consciously choose one difficulty you faced. It could be a moment of stress, a minor failure, or an interaction that irritated you. Write it down and then, following the Stoic model, complete the sentence by stating what this difficulty provided you an opportunity to practice a virtue, a lesson learned, or a new perspective gained. This small, consistent practice does more than just improve your mood. It systematically rewires your perception, building a core of contentment that remains steady regardless of what fortune brings your way. It is a daily declaration that your peace is not for sale to the highest bidder of circumstances, but is built brick by grateful brick within the quiet sanctuary of your own mind. Courage is the knowledge of what to fear and what not to fear, said Epictetus. This definition immediately reframes courage not as the absence of fear, an emotionless bravado, but as a profoundly rational act. It is the wisdom to distinguish between a genuine threat to your character and a mere threat to your comfort. Stoic courage is not about being fearless. It is about having your fear in the right place. The courageous person feels the same flutter in their stomach, the same quickening of the heart as anyone else. The difference lies in what happens next. Instead of being paralyzed by the sensation, they engage their faculty of reason. They pause and conduct a quick internal assessment. Is this fear signaling a true danger to my virtue, my integrity, or my physical safety? Or is it merely signaling a potential blow to my ego, a risk of embarrassment, or the discomfort of stepping into the unknown? This rational sorting is the very essence of Stoic courage. It is the act of moving forward boldly with the right action, not because you feel no fear, but because your commitment to doing what is right is greater than your desire to retreat into safety. Epictetus, with his characteristically sharp insight, draws a crucial line between these 2 types of fear. He points out that we often tremble at phantoms of our own creation, at imagined judgments and potential failures that have no real power over us unless we grant it to them. He teaches, it is not death or pain that is to be feared, but the fear of death or pain. This is a monumental shift in perspective. The real enemy is not the external event itself, but the uncontrolled, irrational terror we attach to it. A lion in the wild is a real danger, and a healthy fear that prompts caution is rational. But the fear of public speaking, the fear of asking for a raise, or the fear of social rejection, these are typically fears of psychological discomfort, not physical peril. They are fears of an internal experience, the feeling of embarrassment, the sting of rejection, the sensation of being judged. The Stoic, practicing courage, learns to sit with that internal discomfort without letting it veto unnecessary action. They understand that the feeling of fear is not a command to stop, but a signal to engage their reason and proceed with deliberate intent. Consider the nearly universal scenario of public speaking. The thought of standing before a room of people, all eyes fixed on you, can trigger a cascade of physiological fear responses: sweaty palms, a racing heart, a dry mouth. The untrained, automatic reaction is to interpret these signals as proof that you should avoid the situation at all costs. The voice of fear screams that you might forget your words, that people will think you are foolish, that you will humiliate yourself. This is where Stoic courage comes to the fore. It begins long before you step onto the stage with the rational assessment Epictetus described. You ask yourself, what is the worst-case scenario here? The worst is not death or physical harm. It is a moment of social discomfort. Is that a rational thing to fear more than the consequence of not speaking, of missing an opportunity to share an important idea, to lead your team, or to advance your career? The courageous act is to acknowledge the nervousness fully, to feel the butterflies, and then to channel that energy into meticulous preparation. You practice your speech not to achieve perfection, but to build competence. You focus on the value you are providing to the audience, shifting the focus from your own internal sensation to your external purpose. And when the moment arrives, you walk to the podium not because you are no longer afraid, but because your commitment to your duty and your message is the louder, more compelling voice. The courage is in the doing, not in the feeling. This same principle of reasoned courage applies to countless other arenas of life. It takes courage to have a difficult conversation with a loved one, where the fear is not of physical harm but of emotional confrontation and potential conflict. The Stoic approach is to assess the risk rationally. What is the true danger, perhaps a temporary period of tension? What is the potential benefit, a deeper, more honest relationship, and a long-term resolution to a festering problem? The courageous action is to initiate the conversation, to speak your truth with kindness despite the knot in your stomach. It takes courage to start a new business or change careers where the fear is of financial instability and failure. The rational assessment asks, is this fear based on a probable, catastrophic outcome, or is it based on the universal uncertainty of any new venture? The courageous path is to take the calculated risk, to prepare a sensible plan, and to take the first step, embracing the possibility of failure as a necessary part of growth and learning. In every case, Stoic courage is the bridge between the inner feeling of apprehension and the outer action of virtue. It is the decision to let your principles, not your passions, dictate your direction. To truly integrate this powerful virtue into your own life, I want you to bring its spirit into the coming week. Look inward and identify one specific fear that has been holding you back. It doesn't have to be a monumental, life-altering fear. It could be something as simple as the fear of making a phone call you've been avoiding, the fear of signing up for a class where you might be a beginner, or the fear of voicing a dissenting opinion in a meeting. Once you have identified it, I want you to apply the Stoic practice of reasoned courage. First, sit down and write out a rational assessment of this fear. What is the absolute worst thing that could realistically happen if you face it? And then, what is the likely or best outcome? Finally, weigh these against the cost of not acting, the stagnation, the missed opportunity, the quiet regret. With this assessment as your foundation, make a deliberate plan to confront this fear. It doesn't have to be a giant leap. A single, small step is enough. If your fear is public speaking, your act of courage could be simply volunteering to give a brief update in your next team meeting. If your fear is of social rejection, it could be reaching out to one person to arrange a coffee. The goal is not the absence of the fearful feeling, but the profound victory of taking action in spite of it. This week, choose one fear and meet it not with brute force, but with clear-eyed reason and the quiet, steadfast determination to act rightly, no matter what your emotions whisper in your ear. The Stoics found wealth not in having more, but in wanting less. This simple but radical inversion is the very heart of Stoic contentment, a state of mind that has nothing to do with settling for mediocrity and everything to do with achieving a profound and lasting freedom. In a world that constantly equates success with accumulation, more money, more followers, more possessions, more experiences, the Stoic path offers a powerful antidote to the quiet anxiety of never having quite enough. This wisdom of contentment is not about depriving yourself, it is about liberating yourself. It is the deliberate practice of drawing a bright, conscious line in the sand of your desires and declaring, "Here I have sufficient." Beyond this point lies not happiness but bondage. By clearly defining what enough means for you, you sever the invisible chains that tie your inner peace to the ever-shifting targets of external validation and material gain. You step off the exhausting treadmill of comparison and scarcity and into a spacious inner world where your happiness is no longer a prize to be won in the future, but a present moment reality based on your own rational choice. Seneca, in his moral letters to Lucilius, dissects this folly of endless acquisition with the precision of a surgeon. He observes that we often live as if life is a race to acquire the most, writing, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This single sentence reframes poverty not as a financial condition, but as a state of soul, an insatiable hunger that no amount of external wealth can ever satisfy. He goes on to paint a vivid picture of the restless mind, noting, "What is the use of possessing numberless books and libraries, whose titles their owner can scarcely read through in a lifetime?" The problem is not the books themselves, but the disordered desire that seeks comfort in the mere act of acquisition, rather than the deep fulfillment of actually reading and understanding. Seneca argues that true wealth is found in limiting our desires to what is natural and necessary, suggesting that until we learn this, we are like people pouring water into a leaky vessel. No matter how much we pour in, we can never fill it up. The peace of sufficiency comes from repairing the leaks, from understanding that our desires, not our possessions, are the source of our discontent. When you stop trying to fill an internal void with external things, you discover that you were never empty to begin with. Let's bring this ancient wisdom into a very modern context, our relationship with technology and gadgets. The cycle is a familiar one. A new smartphone is released with a slightly better camera, a marginally faster processor. The marketing is brilliant, expertly tapping into the fear of missing out and the allure of being on the cutting edge. The untrained mind operating on autopilot immediately generates a desire. It starts to rationalize the purchase. My current phone is getting slow. The battery doesn't last as long. I really need this for my work. This is where the Stoic practice of auditing your desires comes in. It's a conscious intervention, a moment where you pause and question the impulse. You ask yourself not, "Do I want this?" but "Is this necessary for my flourishing, for my eudaimonia? Will this new gadget fundamentally enhance my capacity for virtue, for reason, for living a good life? Or will it simply provide a temporary hit of novelty, soon to be absorbed into the background of your life, leaving you no happier than before and already looking toward the next upgrade?" The goal is not to never buy anything new, but to ensure that your purchases are servants to your life, not masters of your peace. By routinely auditing desires like this, for the latest fashion, the bigger house, the more prestigious car, you train your mind to distinguish between genuine needs that support a good life and manufactured wants that only fuel the engine of dissatisfaction. This principle extends just as powerfully to the intangible realm of social status and professional recognition. The desire for a more impressive job title, for more public praise, for a larger number of followers on social media, these are often even more insidious than material desires because they are less concrete and therefore have no natural limit. There is always someone with a more impressive title, more acclaim, or more followers. The pursuit of status is a race with no finish line, guaranteeing only perpetual exhaustion. The Stoic wisdom of contentment asks you to define enough in this arena as well. What level of professional recognition is truly sufficient for you to feel that you are doing meaningful work and contributing value? Is it the approval of a few respected peers? Is it the internal satisfaction of knowing you did your best? By setting this internal benchmark, you free yourself from the anxious need for constant external validation. Your sense of worth becomes anchored in your own character and effort, making you resilient to the praise or criticism of the crowd, which is as fickle as the weather. To move this from a philosophical concept to a lived reality, I present you with a direct and personal challenge. Choose one specific area of your life where you feel the pull of more, be it physical possessions, professional achievements, or social status. It could be the desire for a newer car, the ambition for a particular promotion, or the craving for more likes on your posts. Now, take a quiet moment and define, in clear and honest terms, what enough would look like in that area. If it's possessions, what do you truly need to live comfortably and pursue your values? If it's professional status, what title or level of accomplishment would allow you to feel you have made your meaningful contribution without needing to constantly climb higher? Write this definition down. This act is not a declaration of complacency. It is an act of profound self-liberation. It is you drawing your own map with a clearly marked X that says you are here and here is sufficient. By knowing where enough is, you can finally stop searching for it in the wrong places and start enjoying the profound wealth of a life that is already rich in the only currency that truly lasts, the peace of a contented mind. How did you live today? The Stoics ended each day with this piercing question, a deliberate practice of self-examination that served as the cornerstone of their lifelong project of character building. This was not a casual glance back at the day's events, but a rigorous, honest audit of the soul, a nightly closing of the books on your moral account. In the quiet solitude of the evening, they would turn the spotlight of their attention inward, replaying their actions, words, and even their secret thoughts, not to indulge in self-criticism, but to engage in the most practical form of self-education. This habit, often called the evening review, is a powerful engine for cultivating the self-awareness that is essential for true resilience. By consciously reflecting on where you stumbled and where you stood firm, you transform everyday experiences into a personalized curriculum for growth. You are no longer just living your life, you are actively studying it, extracting wisdom from your own behavior, and ensuring that each day, no matter how difficult, contributes directly to the strengthening of your character. Seneca, in his profound work on anger, provides a clear blueprint for this practice. He describes his own nightly ritual with striking intimacy, writing, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." This passage reveals the core of the exercise, total, unflinching honesty. It is a private court where you are both the defendant and the judge, with a commitment to truth as the only governing law. Seneca continues, "For why should I fear any consequence from my mistakes when I'm able to say, 'See that you do not do this anymore, I forgive you this time'?" Here he captures the beautifully constructive spirit of the review. Its purpose is not self-flagellation, but compassionate correction. The goal is to identify a misstep, not to punish yourself for it, but to understand its cause and to formally resolve to do better next time. This transforms failure from a mark of shame into a data point for improvement, a necessary part of the learning process that builds resilience by normalizing imperfection and focusing on progress rather than perfection. To make this ancient practice immediately accessible, let's break it down into a simple three-question framework that you can begin using tonight. The first question is, what did I do well today? This is not about inflating your ego, but about consciously reinforcing virtuous behavior. Did you manage to hold your tongue in a moment of provocation, practicing the art of silence? Did you offer kindness to a stranger, embodying the principle of interconnectedness? Did you complete a difficult task with focused diligence, exercising the discipline of action? By actively identifying these moments, you are not just patting yourself on the back, you are strengthening the neural pathways associated with that virtuous behavior, making it more likely to recur automatically in the future. It is a way of telling your mind, this is the direction we are moving in, take note. The second and equally crucial question is, where did I fail to live up to my principles? This requires gentle courage. Perhaps you lost your patience with a loved one over a trivial matter. Maybe you spent an hour mindlessly scrolling instead of working on a meaningful project, or you indulged in complaining about a situation outside your control. The key here is to observe these failures with detached curiosity, like a scientist analyzing an experiment. Instead of saying, I was a jerk, you can note, I reacted with irritation when my partner asked me a simple question. This arose from my judgment that I shouldn't be interrupted when I'm tired. This objective framing separates your core self from the temporary lapse, allowing you to address the behavior without condemning your entire character. It pinpoints the specific virtue that was challenged, in this case, patience or objective judgment, and highlights it as an area for focused attention tomorrow. The third and final question completes the cycle of growth. How can I improve tomorrow? This is where you convert reflection into resolution. Based on your answers to the first two questions, you formulate a specific, actionable intention for the coming day. If you identified a failure of patience, your resolution might be, tomorrow, when I feel tired and someone speaks to me, I will take one deep breath before I respond. If you reinforced an act of courage, your resolution could be, I will look for one more small opportunity to practice speaking up respectfully. This forward-looking question ensures that the evening review is not a passive post-mortem, but a dynamic planning session for your character. It closes the loop, turning yesterday's lessons into tomorrow's blueprint, creating a powerful, self-sustaining cycle of continuous improvement that builds resilient habits one conscious evening at a time. To truly appreciate the transformative potential of this practice, I encourage you to treat it as a short-term experiment. For the next 3 days, I invite you to commit to this Stoic evening review. Just before you go to sleep, find a quiet moment, perhaps in bed with a journal, or simply in the stillness of your own thoughts. Ask yourself these 3 questions with gentle honesty. You don't need to write pages, a few brief notes are enough. The crucial part is the act of consistent reflection itself. As you do this, pay close attention to any subtle shifts in your awareness during the day itself. You may find that knowing you will be conducting this review later changes how you act in the moment. When a flash of anger arises, you might hear a small voice in the back of your mind noting, "This will be interesting to review tonight." This is the practice working its magic in real time, creating a layer of mindful observation between your impulses and your actions. After just 3 days, take stock. Do you feel a greater sense of clarity about your patterns? A slightly increased ability to pause before reacting? A deeper appreciation for your small, daily victories? This is the quiet, cumulative power of self-examination. It doesn't erase life's challenges, but it gives you the tools to learn from every single one of them, steadily forging a resilience that is born not from never falling, but from understanding with perfect clarity how to get back up. Equanimity is the Stoic superpower of remaining unshaken by life's ups and downs. Imagine a state of mind so steady and composed that external chaos, whether it's a sudden financial loss, a personal conflict, or a global crisis, cannot disturb its fundamental peace. This is not a numb detachment or an emotionless void. It is a vibrant, alert calmness, a deep-rooted stability that allows you to meet every situation with clarity and poise. Equanimity is the culmination of all the other Stoic practices we've explored. It is the beautiful, quiet result of diligently building your inner citadel, applying the dichotomy of control, and learning to love your fate. It's the mental equilibrium where you are fully engaged with the world, feeling its joys and sorrows, yet you are never completely overthrown by them. Your inner compass remains true, pointing consistently toward reason and virtue, no matter how fierce the storm rages outside. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, who knew a life of hardship from his time in slavery, offered a powerful image to illustrate this ideal. He taught his students to strive to be like the rock that stands firm against the crashing waves, writing, "Lambs are carried by the butcher, tumble and frolic under the knife, unconscious of what is coming. So we too are unconscious of what is coming, and we are indignant like the lamb, as if something terrible were happening to us." This metaphor is profound. The rock does not fight the waves, it does not curse them or try to reason with them. It simply endures, its essence unchanged by their relentless assault. The lamb, by contrast, is unaware and thus reacts with panic to its fate. Equanimity is the state of the rock, not because we are unfeeling stone, but because we have the conscious awareness and trained resilience to understand the nature of the waves. We recognize that events like waves are external forces. They will come and go, but our core, our judgment and our character can remain solid and unmoved if we choose to fortify it. This steadfastness is not a gift bestowed upon a lucky few. It is a skill honed through the daily, deliberate practice of Stoic discipline. Consider how this superpower would manifest during a real-life crisis, such as a family emergency. You receive a phone call that a loved one has been rushed to the hospital. The immediate, visceral reaction is a surge of fear, a tightening in the chest, a mind racing with worst-case scenarios. This initial wave of emotion is natural and human. Equanimity does not mean you don't feel this. It means that in the very next moment, you consciously engage your training. You take a breath and retreat to your inner citadel. You apply the dichotomy of control with lightning speed. What is not within your control? The diagnosis, the traffic on the way to the hospital, the skill of the doctors. What is within your control? Your breathing, your ability to drive safely, gathering essential documents, making necessary phone calls to other family members. Offering a calm, reassuring presence to others who are also scared. In this state, you are not suppressing your concern for your loved one. You are channeling all your energy into effective, purposeful action. You become the calm center in the storm, the person who thinks clearly when others are beginning to panic. Your equanimity is not for yourself alone. It becomes a source of strength and stability for everyone around you, allowing you to provide the support that is truly needed rather than adding to the chaos with your own uncontrolled reactions. This power of balance extends far beyond dramatic emergencies into the friction of daily life. Imagine your computer crashes moments before you need to join a crucial virtual meeting. The automatic response is frustration, a rush of anxiety, perhaps even anger at the technology or yourself. A person without equanimity might slam the desk, curse, and spiral into a panic that clouds their judgment. A person practicing equanimity feels the same initial jolt of frustration, but they catch it, they pause, they acknowledge the emotion without letting it take the wheel. They then focus on the controllable response, rebooting the computer, quickly sending a message from their phone to apologize for the delay, and having a backup plan ready. The problem is the same, but the internal experience and the external effectiveness are worlds apart. In one scenario, the person is a victim of their own reactive emotions. In the other, they are the master of their response, navigating the obstacle with a quiet efficiency that conserves their energy for solving the problem rather than amplifying it. To truly appreciate the value of this mental state, I invite you to look back over your own recent experiences. Cast your mind to the last week or two and identify one specific event that noticeably upset your inner balance. It might have been a stressful work deadline, a disagreement with a friend, an unexpected bill, or even a plan that fell through at the last minute. Replay that moment in your mind. Recall the feelings that arose, the tension, the irritation, the anxiety. Now, I want you to reimagine that same scenario, but this time through the lens of Stoic equanimity. How would it have unfolded if you had been able to access that rock-like steadiness? What if, when that critical email arrived, you had taken a deep breath and objectively assessed its content before replying? What if, during that argument, you had maintained a calm tone and focused on understanding rather than winning? How would your actions have differed? More importantly, how would you have felt internally, still concerned, still engaged, but fundamentally unshaken? This act of mental rehearsal is not about regretting your past reactions, but about planting a seed for your future responses. By vividly imagining a different, more balanced way of being, you are strengthening your neural pathways and preparing your mind to choose equanimity the next time life's waves come crashing in. No Stoic is an island. They saw wisdom in engaging with the community of humankind. While the image of the solitary philosopher in quiet contemplation is powerful, it is incomplete. The Stoics understood that our resilience is not forged in a vacuum. It is tempered and strengthened through our connections with others. We are social creatures by nature, and to try and build an unshakable character entirely on our own is to ignore a fundamental part of our design and a vital source of our strength. The community provides two indispensable gifts: the shared wisdom of countless other perspectives and the tangible support of mutual aid. When you face a challenge alone, your view is limited to your own thoughts, fears, and biases. But when you open yourself to a community, you gain access to a vast library of lived experience. You learn that you are not the first to face this particular hardship, and you can draw upon the collective knowledge of how others have navigated similar storms. This shared wisdom acts as a corrective lens, offering perspectives you may have never considered and saving you from the exhausting trap of believing you have to invent resilience from scratch. Marcus Aurelius, despite the immense solitude of his imperial power, constantly reminded himself of this truth in his private writings. He offers a particularly challenging and insightful reflection. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil, but I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. And so none of them can hurt me. No one can implicate me in ugliness, nor can I feel angry at my relative or hate him. We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are obstructions. This is not a cynical view of humanity. It is a profoundly compassionate and practical one. Aurelius is training himself to see even the most difficult people as essential parts of the same body. The person who irritates you, the colleague who undermines you, the stranger who is rude to you, they are not obstacles to your peace, but rather your most demanding teachers. They provide the rigorous, real-world training necessary to practice patience, understanding, and the discipline of objective judgment. By learning from them, by refusing to be dragged down to their level, you are not just tolerating them, you are actively strengthening your own resilience, using their behavior as the resistance against which your character muscles grow. One of the most direct ways to put this principle into action today is to actively seek out a community of practice. In the ancient world, this might have meant attending the lectures of a Stoic teacher or engaging in daily dialogues with friends. In our modern world, this can take the form of joining a local or online Stoicism study group or forum. The value of such a community is immense and multifaceted. First, it normalizes the struggle. Reading the texts of Marcus Aurelius or Seneca can sometimes make their wisdom feel distant and unattainable. But when you join a discussion with fellow students, you hear stories from people just like you, a nurse dealing with the stress of a hectic shift, a parent practicing patience with a toddler, an entrepreneur facing the fear of failure. You realize that the principles are not just for Roman emperors, but for all of us, right here and now. Second, it provides a diversity of insight. A passage you found confusing might be brilliantly illuminated by someone else's personal experience. A challenge you're facing might be met with 3 different Stoic solutions you hadn't considered. This collective brainstorming is a powerful way to deepen your understanding and expand your toolkit for resilience, reminding you that there is never just one way to apply a Stoic principle to a complex life. Beyond structured groups, this principle invites us to see our entire social world as a potential classroom for resilience. Every conversation is an opportunity to learn. When a friend shares a problem they are overcoming, you are witnessing resilience in action and can absorb their strategies. When you listen to someone with a radically different political or spiritual view, you are not being asked to agree with them, but you are being offered a chance to practice the Stoic virtue of understanding and to see the common humanity you share beneath the disagreement. Even observing people in public, the calm demeanor of a cashier dealing with a difficult customer, the quiet determination of an elderly person walking slowly with a cane, can provide miniature lessons in grace under pressure. The community, in its broadest sense, is a living, breathing textbook on the human condition, and the Stoic is the attentive student who knows that wisdom and strength can be gleaned from every single interaction, if only we are open to receiving the lesson. To move this from a passive observation to an active cultivation of strength, I want to offer you a simple but profound challenge for the coming week. Think of one specific challenge you are currently grappling with. It could be a decision you're struggling to make, a conflict you're trying to resolve, or a personal goal that feels out of reach. Now I encourage you to reach out to just one person to discuss it. This could be a trusted friend, a family member, a mentor, or even a colleague you respect. The goal of this conversation is not to complain or seek a ready-made solution, but to actively seek a new perspective. When you speak with them, you might say something like, "I'm working through this situation and I value your insight. I'm curious to know how you see it or if you've ever faced something similar." Then truly listen. Listen not to confirm your own pre-existing views, but with the Stoic curiosity of Marcus Aurelius, seeking to find the teacher in the other person. Pay attention not only to their advice, but to the different angle from which they view the problem. This single act of reaching out does 2 things simultaneously. It strengthens your social connection, which is a pillar of resilience in itself, and it immediately broadens your mental horizon, providing you with a fresh lens through which to view your challenge and fortifying you with the shared wisdom that has always been the birthright of a connected and mindful community. Justice isn't just a social ideal for Stoics, it's a personal practice that fortifies the soul. We often think of justice as something that happens in courtrooms or through grand social movements, but the Stoics saw it as a daily discipline, a virtue to be exercised in our most ordinary interactions. This form of justice is about consistently choosing fairness, honesty, and contribution in our dealings with others, not because we are forced to by laws, but because it is the rational and right way for a social being to live. When you act with this kind of integrity, especially when it is difficult or personally costly, you are not just being nice, you are actively building a specific kind of strength known as moral resilience. This is the unshakable confidence that comes from knowing your actions are aligned with your deepest principles, creating a bedrock of self-respect that no external criticism or failure can easily erode. Every time you choose fairness over favoritism or truth over convenience, you are reinforcing the architecture of your own character, making it more capable of withstanding life's inevitable ethical pressures. Marcus Aurelius, who wielded immense power, constantly reminded himself that the purpose of that power was service, not self-indulgence. In his meditations, he offers a piercing reflection that gets to the very heart of Stoic justice. A man must stand erect, not be kept erect by others. This speaks to the internal source of our moral compass. He continues with a line that should be a mantra for anyone seeking to build this kind of strength. Be upright, not straightened. True justice, in the Stoic sense, isn't about performing good deeds for the applause or approval of others. It is an inner uprightness, a structural integrity of the soul that guides your actions because they are correct in themselves, regardless of who is watching. He also wrote, "What is not good for the swarm is not good for the bee." This beautifully simple metaphor encapsulates the Stoic view of our interconnectedness. An act of injustice, of selfishness or cruelty doesn't just harm the recipient, it weakens the entire social fabric to which we belong, and by extension, it weakens us. Acting justly, therefore, is an act of rational self-interest. It strengthens the hive, which in turn supports and protects the bee. Let's bring this principle down from the imperial throne and into the modern workplace, a common arena where our commitment to justice is tested. Imagine you are in a team meeting and your manager publicly blames a colleague for a project's failure, a failure for which you know several people, perhaps even the manager themselves, share responsibility. The easy, self-protective path is to stay silent. You might rationalize it by thinking, "It's not my problem," or "I don't want to make an enemy of the boss." But the path of Stoic justice asks you to consider the common good and your own integrity. Standing up for your unfairly treated colleague becomes an exercise in courageous justice. This doesn't mean causing a dramatic scene or launching a counter-accusation. It could be as simple as waiting for a pause and saying, in a calm and factual tone, "I think it's important to note that we all shared responsibility for the different phases of that project. I know I could have done more on my end, and perhaps we can all discuss as a team how to prevent this in the future." This single act does several powerful things simultaneously. It defends the dignity of your colleague, reinforcing the social bond. It demonstrates integrity to your manager and the rest of the team, showing that you value truth over tribal loyalty. Most importantly, for your own resilience, it proves to yourself that you have the courage to act on your principles under pressure. You walk away from that meeting with your inner citadel not just intact, but reinforced regardless of the outcome. This practice of justice extends far beyond defending others. It is equally about how we conduct ourselves when we think no one is looking. It's about the integrity to admit when you are the one who made the mistake, rather than hiding it or shifting the blame. It's about giving credit freely and generously to others for their contributions, even if it means your own role appears smaller. It's about the fairness of judging others by the same standard you apply to yourself, refusing to indulge in the gossip or stereotypes that so easily poison a community. Each of these small, daily choices is a rep in the gym for your moral resilience. When you habitually choose the just path, you build a kind of psychological muscle memory. When a larger, more frightening ethical dilemma arises, a chance to cheat, to exploit, or to remain silent in the face of a grave injustice, you won't have to deliberate from scratch. Your character will already be conditioned to lean toward integrity, because that is simply who you have practiced being, day in and day out. Now, I want to bring this principle into the immediate reality of your own life. Take a moment to look around you at your relationships, your workplace, your family, or your social circles. Where do you see an opportunity to practice a greater degree of fairness or advocacy? Is there a situation where you have remained silent because speaking up felt uncomfortable or risky? Perhaps you've noticed a family member consistently being spoken over, and you can make an effort to ensure their voice is heard. Maybe at work, there's an unpopular but diligent colleague who never receives recognition, and you can be the one to publicly acknowledge their effort. It could be as simple as noticing your own unconscious bias in a disagreement and making a conscious effort to see the situation from the other person's perspective with true fairness. Identify one specific, tangible situation where you can enact this Stoic virtue of justice in the coming days. By consciously planning and then executing this act, you are doing more than just improving a social dynamic. You are actively participating in the most personal and empowering form of strength training, forging a soul that is not only good but unbreakably so. Long before mindfulness apps, Stoics were training their attention like a muscle. This ancient practice of vigilance, what we might now call mindfulness, is the disciplined art of being the watchful guardian of your own mind. It's about learning to observe the constant stream of thoughts, sensations, and impressions that flow through your consciousness without immediately getting swept away by their current. Think of your mind as a bustling airport with thoughts arriving and departing like flights. The untrained mind is like a passenger who gets on every plane that lands, carried off to distant destinations of anxiety, anger, or daydreams without any conscious choice. The Stoic, however, practices being the air traffic controller. From a calm, elevated tower, you simply watch the planes come in. You note their presence. There's a thought about a work deadline. There's a feeling of irritation from that comment, but you don't automatically grant them clearance to take over your runway. This vigilant awareness creates a crucial gap between an external event or an internal impulse and your response, a space where your reason, not your reflexes, gets to decide what happens next. Epictetus provides the foundational instruction for this entire practice with a teaching that is as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. He said, "Don't let the force of an impression when it first hits you knock you off your feet. Just say to it, hold on a moment, let me see who you are and what you represent. Let me put you to the test." This is the essence of Stoic mindfulness. An impression is anything that strikes your senses or your mind, a critical email, a painful memory, a desire for a new possession. Our default setting is to immediately assent to these impressions, to believe them and react to them as if they are absolute truth. The critical email means my boss is angry. The painful memory proves I am flawed. The desire confirms I will only be happy if I acquire that thing. Epictetus instructs us to interrupt this automatic process. When the impression arrives, you pause. You hold it at arm's length and examine it with curiosity. You ask, is this an accurate representation of reality, or is it just a story my mind is telling me? Is this within my control? By putting the impression to the test, you strip it of its raw, emotional power and turn it into an object of rational inquiry. You move from being a puppet jerked around by every passing thought to being the scientist calmly studying the data. To translate this from a philosophical concept into a lived experience, consider integrating a simple yet powerful daily ritual, the Stoic attention check. This is a deliberate, self-imposed interruption of your autopilot mode. Several times throughout your day, you consciously press the pause button on whatever you are doing. It doesn't require a quiet room or crossed legs. You can do it at your desk, in line at the grocery store, or while washing dishes. In that paused moment, you turn your attention inward and perform a quick, non-judgmental scan of your mental landscape. You simply observe and note what is present. You might notice my shoulders are tense with anticipation for my meeting, or my mind is replaying that awkward conversation from this morning, or I'm feeling a restless urge to check my phone. The goal is not to change what you find, not to force yourself to be calm, but simply to see it clearly. This act of pure observation is like turning on the lights in a dark room. The contents of the room don't necessarily change, but now you can see them for what they are, and you are no longer stumbling around, bumping into furniture and fearing monsters in the shadows. Each attention check is a repetition in the gym for your mind, strengthening your ability to be the aware, conscious witness of your inner world rather than its helpless passenger. The true power of this practice reveals itself in moments of high stress or emotional turbulence. Imagine you're about to have a difficult conversation with a family member. Your heart is pounding, your palms are sweaty, and your mind is racing with rehearsed arguments and defensive retorts. This is precisely the moment to deploy your Stoic attention. Instead of being completely identified with the storm of anxiety and anger, you make the conscious choice to step back just for a few seconds. You observe the physical sensations without fighting them. There is a tightness in my chest. There is a rapid heartbeat. You observe the thoughts without believing them. There is a thought that this conversation will be a disaster. There is a story that I am being unfairly attacked. This simple act of naming and observing creates a small but critical space between you and the emotional hurricane. From this slightly detached vantage point, you regain a measure of choice. You can decide to take a deep breath. You can choose to listen first, to respond from a place of considered principle rather than from a raw, reactive impulse. The situation hasn't changed, but you have changed your relationship to it, and that changes everything. To truly begin weaving this thread of conscious awareness into the fabric of your day, I invite you to undertake a practical experiment. Sometime today, I want you to set 3 random alarms on your phone, spaced a few hours apart. Label these alarms simply attention check. When each alarm sounds, no matter what you are in the middle of, let it be a signal to completely pause for just 60 seconds. Stop talking, stop typing, stop scrolling. For that single minute, your only task is to become the observer of your own mind. Notice what you are thinking about. Notice what emotions are present, if any. Scan your body for any areas of tension or holding. Do this with the gentle curiosity of a naturalist observing a fascinating animal in its habitat without any judgment or any desire to change what you see. The first check might find you focused and productive. The second might reveal a mind buzzing with worry about a future task. The third might find you bored or restless. There is no right or wrong outcome. The value is in the act itself, the repeated practice of stepping out of the stream of your thoughts and onto the bank, even for a moment, to see the water flowing by. This is how you build the muscle of Stoic attention, transforming mindfulness from a modern buzzword into an ancient, reliable tool for cultivating a clear, calm, and resilient mind. To the Stoic, even misfortune is part of a rational, benevolent plan. This is the profound and perhaps most challenging pillar of their worldview, the concept of providence, the unwavering belief that the universe itself is guided by a divine, intelligent principle, the logos, and that every single event without exception serves a purposeful role within its grand, interconnected design. This is not a blind faith in a capricious deity, but a rational trust in a cosmos that is fundamentally good and ordered. When you internalize this perspective, it performs a kind of psychological magic on your relationship with life. The constant, exhausting burden of needing to micromanage every outcome to force reality to conform to your personal preferences begins to dissolve. In its place arises a deep-seated trust, a resilient acceptance that allows you to engage with events not as a frantic controller, but as a calm and cooperative participant in a story far larger than yourself. You begin to see that the universe is not happening to you, but that you are a part of its happening, and that your role is to play your part with virtue, whatever the script may be. The Stoic philosopher Cleans, who succeeded Zeno as head of the Stoic school, captured this sentiment with breathtaking beauty in his hymn to Zeus. He addresses the logos directly, writing, "You know how to make even the odd even, and to order the disorderly, and the unlovely is lovely to you. For thus you have fitted all things together, the good with the bad, so that there is one eternal reason for all things." This is a radical affirmation of cosmic benevolence. Cleans isn't saying that bad things are good in the moment we experience them. He is asserting that from the vantage point of the whole, from the perspective of the cosmos itself, every piece, the painful, the confusing, the tragic, fits perfectly into a mosaic of meaning that we, with our limited sight, cannot fully comprehend. Marcus Aurelius, grappling with this same idea in the trenches of his own life, offered a more personal and practical formulation. He advised himself, "Accept everything which happens, even if it seems disagreeable, because it leads to this, the health of the universe." He is reminding himself that his personal comfort is not the ultimate metric of goodness. The health and coherence of the entire cosmic organism is. A forest fire is devastating to the individual trees, but it clears the canopy for new growth and returns nutrients to the soil, ensuring the forest's long-term vitality. The Stoic trust in providence is the effort to see our personal fires from this ecological, cosmic perspective, trusting that even in our pain, we are contributing to a larger health and order. Let's make this abstract trust intensely personal and practical. Cast your mind back over your own life 5, 10, or even 20 years ago, and identify one event that you initially labeled as a pure catastrophe, a definitive bad thing. Perhaps it was a painful breakup that shattered your world at the time. Maybe it was being rejected from your first choice university, or losing a job you thought was your dream position. In the raw immediacy of that moment, it felt like an unmitigated disaster, a clear sign that the universe was against you. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, trace the threads forward. That devastating breakup, while agonizing, likely forced you to develop a self-reliance and emotional maturity you didn't know you possessed. It may have closed a door that needed to be closed, making space for you to meet the person who would become your truly compatible life partner. That rejected university application might have led you to a different college where you encountered a mentor who changed your career path, or you made a friend who became a lifelong collaborator. The dream job you lost might have been a gilded cage, and its loss was the necessary push that propelled you to start your own business or pivot into a field that was far more aligned with your authentic values and talents. The bad event, when viewed through the wide-angle lens of time, reveals itself not as a random punishment, but as a necessary, if painful, course correction orchestrated by the hidden logic of providence. It was the universe's stern but ultimately benevolent way of guiding you toward a path you were meant to walk, a path you might never have chosen for yourself in your comfort and ignorance. This practice of retroactive trust is the training ground for developing proactive trust in your current life. Right now, you are likely facing some uncertainty, a health scare, a financial worry, a relationship in flux, a career at a crossroads. The natural tendency is to grip the steering wheel of your life with white knuckles, trying to force a specific outcome and living in a state of anxiety that it might not happen. The Stoic principle of Providence invites you to loosen that grip, to place one hand on the wheel of your own effort and the other in the hand of a trusted guide. It means doing your part, seeing the doctor, managing your budget, communicating honestly, working diligently, while simultaneously releasing your frantic attachment to a single, predetermined result. You can say to yourself, I will do everything within my power, and I will trust that the logos, the intelligent fabric of the universe, will weave my efforts into an outcome that serves the health of the whole, which includes my own long-term well-being, even if I cannot see how in this moment. This is not passive resignation. It is an active and intelligent collaboration with reality. It is the difference between being a frantic passenger on a raft, terrified of every rapid, and being a confident rafter who knows how to paddle with the river's current, using its power to navigate rather than exhausting yourself by fighting against it. To truly integrate this profound trust into the marrow of your being, I encourage you to bring its spirit to a current source of uncertainty in your own life. Identify one situation that is causing you anxiety right now, where the outcome is unclear and you feel the familiar urge to control and manipulate every variable. It could be waiting to hear back after a job interview, navigating the early, fragile stages of a new relationship, or facing a diagnosis with an uncertain prognosis. For the next week, I want you to practice a simple daily ritual. Each morning, as you commit to your own virtuous effort, preparing for your day, sending a follow-up email, acting with kindness, also make a conscious declaration of trust. Silently affirm to yourself, I am doing my part and I trust the universe to do its part. I may not understand the plan, but I trust there is one. Then, as worries about the outcome arise during the day, meet them not with resistance, but with this mantra of trust. You are not asking for a specific result. You are cultivating a state of mind that can handle any result with equanimity. This practice slowly rewires your default setting from one of anxious control to one of confident participation. You begin to move through life with the unshakable, quiet resilience of someone who knows they are not a solitary castaway on a hostile sea, but a vital crew member on a grand, intelligently captained ship, sailing toward a horizon you may not yet see, but can learn to trust is there. The Stoics aim to plant the seeds without obsessing over the harvest. This beautiful agricultural metaphor captures the essence of a profoundly liberating practice, the art of letting go of outcomes. In a world that relentlessly measures success by results, the win, the promotion, the number on the scale, this Stoic principle offers a radical alternative. It invites us to shift the entire locus of our satisfaction and self-worth from the unpredictable and often fickle external world to the one domain we truly command, our own effort and intention. This is not a recipe for apathy or low standards. On the contrary, it is a call to pour your entire being into your actions, to strive for excellence with every fiber of your will, but then to release your tight-fisted grip on the final result. The farmer controls the planting, the watering, the weeding, the diligent, virtuous work, but the weather, the soil conditions, the final yield, those belong to nature. To tie your happiness to the harvest is to hand over your inner peace to forces you can never fully control, setting yourself up for inevitable disappointment and fragile resilience. True strength is found in becoming the kind of person who finds deep fulfillment in the quality of the work itself, in the integrity of the effort, regardless of the trophy or the title that may or may not come. The foundational wisdom for this practice comes directly from Epictetus, who draws the clearest possible line between our domain and the domain of fortune. In his Enchiridion, he instructs, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." This simple sentence is a complete philosophy of action. Your power lies in your choices, your judgments, your desires, and your aversions, in a word, your character and your conduct. Everything else, how people react to you, whether you get the job, if it rains on your parade, is part of the rest that you must learn to take as it happens. He further clarifies that when we become entangled in outcomes, we are essentially confusing what is ours with what is not. He writes, "Some things are up to us and some are not up to us." Our opinions, impulses, desires, and aversions, in a word, whatever is our own doing, are up to us. Our bodies, our property, our reputations, and our public offices are not up to us. The art of letting go is the continuous practice of remembering this distinction and investing your emotional energy only in the first column. It is the understanding that your worth is determined by the honesty of your attempt, not by the applause that may or may not follow. We can see this principle embodied in the mindset of a truly dedicated athlete. Imagine a marathon runner who commits to a grueling months-long training regimen. Their entire focus is on the process, the daily pre-dawn runs, the careful nutrition, the disciplined sleep schedule, the strengthening of their mind against the voice that begs them to quit. They control their effort, their preparation, and their attitude with meticulous care. On race day, they pour every ounce of their being into the run. Now consider two different endings. In one, they achieve a personal best and qualify for a major championship. In the other, they suffer a cramp at mile 20 and are forced to slow down, finishing well off their goal time. The athlete who has mastered the art of letting go experiences both outcomes with a fundamental equanimity. The victory is enjoyed, but not as the sole source of their validation. The disappointment is felt, but it does not define them or erase the value of their journey. Their core satisfaction comes from knowing they left everything they had on the course, that they trained with integrity and raced with courage. The outcome is a data point, the effort is the legacy. This athlete is resilient because their identity is not a winner or a loser, but a person who gives their best. This mindset makes them unstoppable because a single setback cannot break their spirit. It simply becomes part of the training for the next attempt. This wisdom applies with just as much force to our professional and creative lives. Consider an author who spends years writing a novel. If their attachment is solely to the outcome of it becoming a bestseller, they are setting themselves up for potential anguish. The publishing industry is fickle, public taste is unpredictable, and luck plays a significant role. An author practicing the Stoic art of letting go would focus on what is within their power, writing the most truthful, compelling story they are capable of. They would dedicate themselves to the craft, revising tirelessly, and ensuring the manuscript represents their highest standard. They can then submit it to agents and publishers, but their sense of accomplishment and self-worth remains rooted in the completion of that virtuous effort. Whether the book is rejected 100 times or becomes a surprise hit, the author's inner citadel remains unshaken. The work itself was the reward. The same dynamic holds for any project at work, a job application, or even an artistic hobby like painting or playing an instrument. The goal is to fall in love with the practice, with the daily act of showing up and trying, and to let the public results, the sales, the promotions, the likes, be what they may, without allowing them to dictate your inner state. To truly begin weaving this liberating practice into the fabric of your own life, I want to invite you to a moment of honest self-reflection. Look at your current goals and ambitions and identify one where you feel a particularly tight knot of attachment. Where are you holding on so tightly to a specific result that the mere thought of not achieving it causes you anxiety or dread? Is it a particular sales target at work that you feel defines your competence? Is it the goal of reaching a certain number on the scale to the point that a minor fluctuation ruins your day? Is it the desire for a relationship to progress in a very specific, predetermined way? Once you have identified this goal, I encourage you to perform a simple but powerful mental exercise. For the next week, make a conscious decision to shift 100% of your focus onto the effort and process involved, and deliberately release your focus from the outcome. If your goal is the sales target, your new focus becomes making one more thoughtful client call each day, or preparing for your meetings with extra care. If it's the weight goal, your focus becomes honoring your body with nutritious food today and enjoying your movement without stepping on the scale. If it's the relationship, your focus becomes being fully present and kind in your next interaction without projecting it into a future expectation. This is the practice of planting the seed with all your skill and hope, and then turning your attention to the next seed, trusting that the harvest will take care of itself in its own time and its own way. Patience is not passive waiting, it is active endurance with a calm mind. This crucial distinction lies at the heart of the Stoic understanding of this vital virtue. In our modern culture, patience is often mistaken for a state of helpless idleness, a frustrating gap between our desire and its fulfillment where we are simply forced to bide our time. The Stoic perspective transforms this completely. Patience for them is not a void, it is a space filled with purposeful engagement. It is the conscious, active practice of aligning your internal rhythm with the deliberate, unfolding pace of the universe. It is the strength to hold your course without succumbing to the agitation of frustration, trusting that the right outcomes have their own seasons and cannot be rushed without damaging their essence. This kind of patience is a powerful expression of your inner citadel, a demonstration that your peace is not dependent on instant gratification or the immediate resolution of every discomfort. It is the quiet power to endure the unfolding of events with grace, because you understand that your role is not to control the timing, but to control your response to it. Seneca, in his profound letters to his friend Lucilius, dissects our cultural obsession with haste and reveals the profound wisdom in embracing a slower, more deliberate pace. He observes with his characteristic sharpness, there is nothing more certain than the fact that the harmful results of our haste must be undone by a long, slow process. Consider the implications of that statement. Our frantic rushing, our desperate attempts to force solutions and skip necessary steps often creates more problems than it solves, problems that then require a patient, painstaking effort to untangle. He then offers a beautiful metaphor for the natural world that serves as a model for our own lives, writing, "Time discovers the truth. You can no more speed up the harvest by tearing open the bud than you can slow it by covering the blossom." This is the essence of Stoic patience. It is the recognition that there is a natural, intelligent timing to all processes, from the growth of a seed to the development of a skill, from the healing of a wound to the maturation of a relationship. To fight against this timing is not just futile, it is fundamentally irrational. It is to declare war on reality itself. The wisdom of patience is the understanding that you are a collaborator with time, not its master, and that your most effective action is often a calm, steady, and persistent effort, not a frantic, forced one. Let's bring this ancient wisdom into the most common and irritating of modern arenas, the daily commute. You are sitting in unmoving traffic, watching the minutes tick past on the clock. Your meeting starts in 10 minutes, and you are still miles away. The automatic, untrained response is a surge of pure frustration. Your grip tightens on the steering wheel, your body tenses, and your mind spirals into a torrent of angry thoughts about other drivers, poor city planning, and the unfairness of it all. This reaction expends a tremendous amount of mental and emotional energy, leaving you drained and agitated before your day has even properly begun. Now, apply the Stoic practice of active endurance. The traffic jam is a fact. Your lateness is a probable outcome. These are not within your control in this moment. What is within your control is how you use this unexpected pocket of time and how you manage your inner state. Instead of feeding the frustration, you can choose to actively endure. You can turn off the news and listen to a piece of music you truly love, allowing yourself to be fully present with it. You can use the time as an opportunity for a mini meditation, focusing on your breath and releasing the tension from your shoulders and jaw. You can even use it for a moment of reflection, thinking about something you are grateful for or mentally planning your evening in a positive way. The traffic hasn't moved, but you have transformed the experience from a source of stress into a practice session for your patience. You are no longer a victim of the delay. You are a practitioner of endurance, using the obstacle as your training ground. This principle extends with immense power to our professional and personal growth. Imagine you are learning a complex new skill, like a language or a musical instrument. The initial excitement can quickly give way to impatience. You want to be fluent, you want to play the song perfectly, and the slow, awkward, mistake-filled process of learning can be deeply frustrating. The impatient mind wants to skip the fundamentals and jump to the advanced level, an approach that inevitably leads to a fragile and incomplete understanding. The patient mind, guided by Stoic wisdom, embraces the slowness. It finds satisfaction in the daily, disciplined practice itself. It celebrates the small, incremental improvements, the new word mastered, the difficult chord transition finally nailed. It understands that true mastery is not a destination you rush to, but a quality that is woven into the fabric of the journey itself. Similarly, in a relationship, patience is the active endurance required to truly understand another person. It is the choice to listen completely without immediately formulating your response. It is the grace to allow a loved one to work through their own emotions at their own pace, without pressuring them to get over it or conform to your timeline for resolution. This active, engaged patience is the soil in which deep trust and intimacy grow, while impatience is a weed that chokes them out. To truly integrate this virtue into the core of your being, I present you with a direct and practical challenge for the remainder of your day. Make it your mission to become a detective of your own impatience. Sometime before you go to sleep, I want you to recall one specific instance where you felt that familiar, hot surge of impatience. It might have been waiting in a slow-moving line for coffee, watching a slow-loading progress bar on your computer, or dealing with a customer service agent who seemed to be moving through molasses. Replay that moment in your mind. Now perform a conscious act of reframing. Instead of seeing it as stolen time or an unnecessary obstacle, reframe it explicitly as an exercise in endurance. See that moment as a rep in the gym for your patience muscle. That slow barista was your personal trainer for calmness. That spinning wheel on your screen was your meditation bell, calling you back to a state of composed waiting. By performing this simple mental switch, you are not just changing your perception of a single event. you are fundamentally altering your relationship with time and delay. You are training your mind to see every minor frustration not as an enemy to your peace, but as an invited guest whose purpose is to help you build the unshakable, quiet strength of a patient heart. The Stoics saw humility as the antidote to arrogance and the gateway to learning. In a culture that often equates self-worth with being the loudest voice in the room or the most accomplished person on the team, this ancient virtue can feel counterintuitive, even weak. But the Stoic understanding of humility is anything but weak. It is a position of immense strength, born from a clear-eyed and rational assessment of our true place in the grand scheme of existence. Humility for the Stoic is not about self-deprecation or thinking less of yourself. It is about thinking of yourself less. It is the conscious practice of zooming out from the narrow, ego-driven story of your own life and seeing yourself as a single, fleeting note in the symphony of the cosmos. This perspective is not meant to make you feel insignificant, but to free you from the exhausting burden of your own self-importance. When you truly grasp how small your part is in the vast theater of time and space, the need to always be right, to get the credit, or to defend your fragile self-image begins to evaporate. In its place arises a resilient adaptability, a lightness of being that allows you to learn from every situation and every person you encounter, because you no longer see them as threats to your status, but as potential teachers. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, constantly engaged in this humbling practice within the pages of his private journal. He would write reminders to himself such as, "Think of the universal substance, of which you have a very small portion, and of universal time, of which a short and indivisible interval has been assigned to you, and of that which is fixed by destiny, and how small a part of it you are." He wasn't belittling himself. He was engaging in a cosmic reality check. By meditating on the sheer scale of the universe and the brief flicker of his own existence within it, he was draining the poison of arrogance from his soul. How could he afford to be haughty or hold a grudge when his entire life was but a blink in the life of the cosmos? Another powerful reflection of his drives this point home. You are a little soul carrying around a corpse. While this sounds stark to modern ears, its purpose is profoundly liberating. It strips away all the external trappings of status, wealth, and reputation, reducing us to our essential nature, a spark of consciousness inhabiting a temporary, fragile body. When you internalize this, the opinions of others, the chase for prestige, and the sting of insults lose their power. Your resilience grows because your sense of self is no longer tied to things that are here today and gone tomorrow, but is anchored in the simple, unshakable fact of your participation in a reality far greater than yourself. One of the most immediate and powerful ways to practice this Stoic humility is in the heat of a disagreement. Imagine you are in a lively discussion with a friend or colleague about a topic you feel strongly about, perhaps a political issue, a strategic decision at work, or even the best way to organize a shared project. You've laid out your argument with conviction, backed by facts and logic as you see them. Then, the other person presents a piece of information or a perspective you hadn't considered, and you suddenly realize that a core part of your position is flawed. The automatic, ego-driven response is to double down. You might become defensive, subtly change the subject, or use rhetorical tricks to avoid conceding the point. Your pride tells you that admitting you were wrong is a form of defeat, a loss of face. The practice of humility, however, offers a completely different path. In that moment, you have a choice. You can take a quiet breath, set your ego aside, and simply say, "You know, you're right. I hadn't considered that. Thank you for pointing it out." This is not a moment of weakness. It is a moment of profound strength. It demonstrates that your commitment to truth and understanding is greater than your commitment to being right. This single act does more than just resolve an argument. It strengthens the relationship, it opens your mind to new information, and it reinforces a resilient self-image that is based on growth, not on infallibility. This practice extends far beyond formal arguments into the very way we approach our daily lives and our own ambitions. Consider the modern obsession with personal branding and the carefully curated image we present on social media. This entire project is often an exercise in anti-humility, a constant performance of our best moments, our wisest thoughts, our most impressive achievements, all designed to project an image of unshakable competence and success. The Stoic practice of humility invites us to step off this stage. It encourages us to embrace our beginner's mind when learning a new skill, to openly ask for help when we are struggling, and to celebrate the successes of others without a hint of jealous comparison. In a professional setting, it means being the leader who gives credit freely to their team, or the team member who is quick to acknowledge their own mistakes in a project post-mortem, focusing on collective learning rather than individual blame. This creates an environment of psychological safety and relentless improvement, which is far more resilient than any culture built on a foundation of fragile egos and hidden insecurities. Humility makes you adaptable because it allows you to see feedback not as criticism, but as free data for your own evolution. To truly understand where this virtue could transform your own experience, I invite you to turn the lens inward for a moment of quiet and honest reflection. Look at the landscape of your life and identify one specific area where you suspect pride might be quietly holding you back. Is it in your career where an unwillingness to ask for guidance or feedback is stalling your progress? Is it in a relationship where an old grudge or a need to be seen as the good one is preventing a genuine reconciliation? Is it in a hobby or a skill you'd like to develop where the fear of looking foolish as a beginner is stopping you from even starting? Pinpoint that area. Now ask yourself a simple but powerful question. How could practicing humility in this specific context actually serve me? If it's the career stagnation, could admitting to a mentor that you feel lost be the first step toward a new direction? If it's the strained relationship, could letting go of the need to be right be the key that unlocks a deeper connection? If it's the new skill, could embracing the awkward, clumsy phase of learning be the very thing that finally allows you to experience the joy of mastery? Humility is not about making yourself small. It is about making your capacity for growth limitless. By consciously choosing to lay down the heavy armor of pride, you become lighter, more open, and infinitely more resilient to the inevitable stumbles and lessons that are an essential part of a life fully lived. Stoics train their desires as rigorously as athletes train their bodies. This is the core of the discipline of desire, one of the three core Stoic disciplines alongside the discipline of assent and the discipline of action. It's about moving through the world with a kind of selective hunger, learning to crave only those things that nourish your character and contribute to your flourishing, while developing a quiet indifference to everything else. Imagine your mind as a garden. Your desires are the seeds you choose to plant. If you plant seeds for exotic, fragile flowers that require perfect weather and constant attention, seeds for fame, for endless wealth, for the approval of everyone you meet, you are setting yourself up for a life of anxiety. The slightest change in conditions, a single critical comment or a financial setback, will cause those plants to wilt, and your inner landscape will reflect that decay. But if you plant seeds for sturdy, native plants that thrive in any season, seeds for integrity, for self-respect, for compassion, for the courage to do what's right, then your inner garden becomes a source of unshakable peace. No external storm can truly damage it. The discipline of desire is the daily practice of being a discerning gardener of your own soul, carefully selecting which seeds you allow to take root. Epictetus provides the ultimate filter for this selection process in his Enchiridion. He instructs us with breathtaking clarity. Some things are up to us and some are not up to us. Our opinions, impulses, desires, and aversions, in a word, whatever is our own doing, are up to us. This is the foundational rule. A desire is only virtuous and rational if it is directed at something that is entirely within your power to obtain or achieve. Your own effort, your own honesty, your own judgment, your own character, these are legitimate objects of desire because you have complete command over them. You can desire to be a more patient parent today. You can desire to work with greater focus on your current task. You can desire to speak with more kindness. These desires are aligned with virtue because their fulfillment depends solely on you. But to desire a specific outcome, like getting a promotion, or having someone like you, or winning a competition, is to set yourself up for inevitable frustration. You are desiring something that is not entirely in your hands. You can do everything right. You can be the most qualified candidate, the most likable person, the most skilled competitor, and still, the final decision rests with other people, with chance, with circumstances beyond your command. To chain your happiness to such an external is to hand over the keys to your emotional state to the whims of fortune. The discipline of desire is the act of taking those keys back, of wanting only what you can guarantee for yourself through your own virtuous choices. Let's apply this powerful filter to a desire that dominates the modern psyche, the craving for social media validation, the pull to check your phone after posting a photo or a thought, the anticipation for those little red notifications, the slight pang of disappointment when a post doesn't get the engagement you hoped for. This is a perfect laboratory for practicing the Stoic discipline. When you feel that urge, that desire for likes and positive comments, pause and subject it to the Epictetus test. Is this desire for validation within my control? The clear and honest answer is a resounding no. You cannot control who sees your post, how the algorithm presents it, or how people choose to react. You are desiring an external outcome. Now ask the second, more important question. Is this desire virtuous? Does it align with reason and contribute to my flourishing? The desire for validation is often a mask for a deeper, more legitimate desire. The desire for connection, for community, for feeling seen and understood. But social media validation is a shallow, unreliable, and often misleading substitute for genuine connection. It's like craving sugar when your body actually needs hydration. The virtuous realignment of this desire would be to shift your focus from the uncontrollable outcome of likes to the entirely controllable action of connecting. Instead of desiring validation, you can desire to reach out to one friend today with a meaningful, personal message. You can desire to share an idea that you genuinely believe could help someone, regardless of how it is received. You can desire to use the platform to express your creativity for the sheer joy of the act itself. By reframing the desire in this way, you reclaim your power. The fleeting dopamine hit of a notification is replaced by the deep, lasting satisfaction of having acted in accordance with your values. You are no longer a beggar waiting for digital scraps of approval. You are an active agent cultivating genuine connection and expression. This discipline extends far beyond the digital world into the most fundamental areas of our lives. Consider the desire for material possessions. There's a natural and reasonable desire for security, for shelter, for tools that help us live our lives. But this easily morphs into a voracious desire for more, a newer car, a bigger house, the latest designer item. The Stoic practice asks you to interrogate this desire. Is it within your control to simply acquire these things? Not entirely. It depends on your finances, the market, and other external factors. More crucially, is it virtuous? Does a slightly newer car model truly contribute to your character or your capacity for reason? Often, these desires are stoked by comparison, by advertising, by a societal story that tells us we are what we own. The virtuous realignment is to desire enough to define for yourself what constitutes sufficient comfort and security, and to find freedom in that sufficiency. Your desire then shifts from acquiring more stuff to cultivating a mind that is content with what it has, a mind that finds its wealth in its own resources rather than in external accumulation. The same rigorous examination can be applied to the desire for a perfect, pain-free life. This is perhaps the most futile desire of all, as change, loss, and difficulty are woven into the very fabric of existence. To desire only pleasure and ease is to desire the impossible, guaranteeing a life of resistance and suffering. The Stoic realignment is to desire the strength to meet whatever comes with courage and wisdom. You stop wanting a smooth sea and start wanting the skill to sail in any weather. This shift doesn't make the storms less real, but it makes you infinitely more capable of navigating them. To truly begin this transformative work of retraining your own desires, I encourage you to undertake a simple but revealing exercise. Sometime today, find a quiet moment with a notebook or a blank screen. At the top of the page, write down the 3 desires that feel most pressing in your life right now. Be brutally honest. They might be grand, like the desire for a new career, or they might be mundane, like the desire for a particular person to text you back. Now draw 2 columns next to each desire. Label the first column virtuous and the second column within my control. For each desire, ask the probing questions we've discussed. Is this desire aligned with my core values of reason, justice, courage, and moderation? Does its fulfillment depend primarily on my own choices and efforts, or does it hinge on the actions of others, on luck, or on unpredictable circumstances? The goal here is not to judge yourself for having these desires. Desire is a natural human function. The goal is to bring them into the clear light of conscious awareness and subject them to the Stoic filter of reason. You may find that a desire you thought was central to your happiness is, in fact, a source of your anxiety because it's directed at an external you cannot command. The profound power of this exercise lies in what you do next. For any desire that fails the test, your task is to reframe it. Transform the desire for an uncontrollable outcome into a desire for a virtuous action. Instead of desiring the promotion, desire to do your work today with excellence and integrity. Instead of desiring that someone text you back, desire to communicate your own feelings with honesty and clarity. This is the heart of the discipline, shifting your wants from the shifting sands of externals to the solid ground of your own character, building a life where your peace is never for sale because it is generated from within. A reed bends in the wind while an oak breaks. The Stoic is the reed. This simple image from nature holds a profound truth about the kind of strength that endures. We often equate resilience with being unyielding, with standing firm and immovable against the pressures of life. But the Stoics understood a deeper, more fluid kind of power, the power of adaptation. It is the strength to bend without breaking, to pivot without shattering, to accept the changing winds of circumstance and adjust your sails accordingly. This isn't about being fickle or lacking conviction in your core principles. Your inner citadel, your commitment to virtue, remains your unwavering foundation. But the specific plans you make, the paths you chart to reach your goals, the daily expectations you hold, these must be held lightly with an open hand, ready to be reshaped or released entirely when reality presents a different map. Rigid attachment to a single, predetermined outcome is a prescription for suffering because life, by its very nature, is unpredictable. Flexibility, on the other hand, is the art of resilient navigation. It allows you to move through a changing world with grace and intelligence, turning potential dead ends into unexpected detours that often lead to places far more interesting than your original destination. Seneca captures this essential wisdom with his characteristic elegance, writing in his moral letters, "A great pilot can sail even when his canvas is rent." Let that image sink in. The skilled sailor doesn't curse the wind for tearing the sail or give up the journey entirely. He assesses the damage, adjusts his technique, and uses the remaining resources and the prevailing conditions to continue moving forward. Seneca is telling us that the mark of a wise person is not a life of perfect, untorn sails and calm seas. It is the ability to navigate expertly even when things are broken, when plans are in tatters, and the situation is far from ideal. The foolish person, attached to their perfect plan, is paralyzed when the wind shifts. They waste their energy fighting the current, trying to force the world back into the shape they demand it to be. The adaptable Stoic, however, simply observes the new current, adjusts their stance, and finds a way to work with it. This adaptability is an active, intelligent cooperation with reality. It is the recognition that while you control your intentions and your efforts, you do not control the world's response. To insist otherwise is to live in a state of perpetual conflict with the universe, a battle you are guaranteed to lose. Consider a very relatable modern scenario, a long-awaited and meticulously planned vacation. You've saved for months, researched the perfect itinerary, booked flights and a beautiful hotel, and been counting down the days. Then, a week before departure, a family emergency arises, or a sudden work crisis demands your presence, or a global event grounds all flights. The vacation, as you envisioned it, is impossible. The rigid, untrained response is one of profound frustration and disappointment. You might spend days fuming, complaining about the unfairness of it all, mentally clinging to the lost trip, and allowing the cancellation to cast a shadow over your entire mood. You are the oak tree, and the unexpected wind has just snapped a major branch. Now, imagine applying the Stoic power of adaptation. You acknowledge the disappointment, it's okay to feel it. But then you consciously let go of the rigid plan. You look at the new reality. You have a week of unexpected free time. How can you adjust your sails? Perhaps you can't travel abroad, but you can transform your cancellation into a staycation adventure. You could explore a part of your own city you've never seen, visit local museums, have a themed movie night, or use the time to finally start that creative project you never have time for. You could use the time for deep rest and connection with family, turning a cancelled trip into an opportunity for home-based renewal. The key is the willing, even cheerful, embrace of the change. By bending with the wind, you don't just avoid breaking. You often discover a hidden gift in the disruption, a slower pace, a new local interest, or a deepened sense of gratitude for the simple comforts of home that you usually take for granted. This principle of fluidity extends powerfully into our professional lives and personal growth. Imagine you are working on a complex project with a detailed step-by-step plan. Halfway through, new information comes to light that renders your initial approach obsolete. The rigid mind sees this as a failure and a setback, a reason to scrap everything and start over in a panic. The adaptable Stoic mind sees it as a necessary course correction. It pauses, assesses the new data with a calm and rational eye, and willingly alters the plan. It asks, given this new information, what is the most effective path forward now? This flexibility is the engine of innovation and problem solving. It allows you to incorporate new learning and respond to changing markets, technologies, and needs without being trapped by your own past decisions. In your personal development, adaptability means being willing to update your beliefs and perspectives when presented with compelling new evidence. It means being able to say, "I used to think that, but now I see things differently." This intellectual humility is a form of strength, preventing you from becoming a fossil of your own outdated ideas and keeping your mind supple, curious, and open to a lifetime of learning. To truly integrate this resilient flexibility into your own mindset, I want to invite you to a simple but revealing exercise in reflection. Cast your mind back over the last few weeks and identify one specific plan or expectation that did not work out as you had hoped. It doesn't have to be a major life event. It could be as simple as a dinner plan that fell through, a workout you missed, or a goal you didn't quite meet. Hold that specific instance in your thoughts. Now, I want you to practice adaptive thinking. Ask yourself, how could I have applied the Stoic principle of flexibility in that moment? Instead of focusing on the disappointment of the plan failing, what alternative path could I have chosen? If your dinner was cancelled, could you have enjoyed a quiet, peaceful evening at home with a book, seeing it as a gift of unexpected solitude? If you missed your workout, could you have done 5 minutes of stretching, adapting your definition of a successful exercise day? The goal of this reflection is to rewire your brain's default setting from frustration to creative possibility. By consciously rehearsing this adaptive mindset on past events, you are building the mental muscle to apply it in real time to future disruptions, training yourself to be the reed that bends gracefully in the wind, always resilient, always ready to find a new way to grow. And so we arrive at the end of our journey, having walked through the quiet corridors of Stoic wisdom, exploring the architecture of an invisible strength that does not shout but endures. We began by fortifying our inner citadel, that sacred space of reason within each of us that remains untouched by external chaos. We learned to wield the liberating power of the dichotomy of control, sorting our worries into what is within our command and what is not, instantly conserving vast reserves of our mental energy. We embraced the transformative art of Amor Fati, learning to love our fate and see every obstacle not as a barrier but as the very path itself. We practiced the premeditation of evils to disarm fear, zoomed out with the view from above to gain perspective, and sought voluntary discomfort to toughen our resolve. We remembered our mortality to clarify our purpose, judged events objectively to see things as they are, and mastered the art of silence to preserve our peace. Each of these principles, from the discipline of action to the trust in Providence, from the practice of gratitude to the power of letting go, is not a separate tool, but a single, interlocking system for building a life of profound resilience. This is not a strength that makes you invulnerable to life's pains, but one that makes you unbreakable in your response to them. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your peace was never out there to be found, but in here to be built, brick by daily brick, through consistent practice. The Roman philosopher Epictetus, who endured the hardship of slavery to become one of history's most profound teachers, leaves us with a final, empowering thought on this very endurance. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself. This is the ultimate prize of this entire endeavor, inner freedom, the freedom that comes from not being a slave to your passions, your cravings, or the opinions of others. The freedom to choose your response, to find meaning in difficulty, and to remain the calm, unwavering captain of your own soul, no matter how fierce the storm." Remember the challenge you held in your mind at the very beginning of this video, that internal battle, that unseen pressure point where you felt your resilience was being tested. Look at it again now through the lens of all we've explored. Can you see how the principles of the inner citadel or the dichotomy of control might change your relationship to it? The real victory was never about eliminating that challenge from your life, but about changing how you stand in relation to it. The toughest battles are indeed won within, in the silent, determined choices you make in your own mind long before any external outcome is ever decided. As we part ways, I want to leave you with one final, personal reflection. Of all the Stoic principles we discussed today, which one landed with the most resonance for you? Was it the idea of loving your fate, of turning obstacles into fuel? Or was it the practice of Memento Mori, using the awareness of your limited time to ignite purposeful action? Perhaps it was the simple yet profound power of the evening review, taking a few moments each night to learn from your day. Whatever it was, I encourage you to make it personal and practical. Don't let this just be a video you watched, let it be a turning point. Choose one principle, just one, and make a concrete commitment to yourself to practice it deliberately for the next week. Carry it with you, apply it to your daily irritations and your larger struggles, and observe the quiet shift that begins to occur within you. If this journey into Stoic wisdom has provided you with value, with a new perspective or a practical tool for your life, then consider subscribing to the channel. We are dedicated to bringing you more content that bridges ancient philosophy and modern living, offering practical wisdom for building a life of strength, purpose, and peace. And I would be truly grateful if you would share your own experiences in the comments below. Tell me which principle resonated most with you, or share a story of how you've already begun to apply this quiet resilience in your own life. Your insights not only enrich this community, but become a source of learning and inspiration for others on this same path. Thank you for your time and your attention. Go forth and